We are going to get started. Again, for people in the audience who may want to remember that we are not required to take public comment. We will have 10 minutes of public comment, and that it needs to be germane and related to the items that are on the agenda. So with that, we will get started with the Orleans Parish Communications District, followed by a presentation of the Legislative Auditor, EMS, Fire Department, and the Coroner. Good morning, Director Fassold and team.
Good morning.
And I guess just, even though we're not a full voting committee, I'm here, Councilmember Harris is here, Vice President Moreno, President Morrell, and Councilmember Green.
We can just skip the org chart slide. Good morning, Council President, Vice President, Budget Chair, Council members. I'm Carl Fassold, Executive Director of OPCD. To my left is Cassandra Robert, who is our Finance Manager. To her left is Teresa Thompson, our Deputy Executive Director, and of course, you know our CAO rep here. With that, I'm ready to start.
Thank you.
So our accomplishments over the last year, the NOFD fire alerting system is actually in final testing this week and deployment, after which we'll start working on the punch list and get all of that taken care of and get it closed out by the end of the year. We have almost completed having all of our supervisors certified to dispatch all 3 disciplines, and we have a requirement that any newly promoted supervisors be certified in all 3 disciplines within 6 months. Eventually, that will be a requirement that they be certified as dispatcher 3s before they can apply to be supervisors, but we're not quite there yet. We have continued to increase our training availability for all personnel. Our 911 operations manager is currently in the APCO CPE program, and our 4 operations managers are in the APCO RPL program, which are advanced certifications within the public safety and emergency communications spectrum. We've exceeded the NENA answer time recommendations of 90% of 911 calls in 15 seconds in 3 of the last 6 months. Next slide. Where we have all the information available that you guys can refer to later. If you flip to the next one. We reactivated and pursued and got FEMA funding to renovate the Roman Capitol building, which is the old building on the front of our site with the statues in front of it. From FEMA to rehabilitate that following Ida, we have returned it to use as office space to relieve some of the overcrowding at admin offices, et cetera, at no additional cost to OPCD. We've had no findings in our LLA report, our audit this year. We're continuing to provide additional emotional support services for our employees. We have the chaplain provided by Baptist Community Ministries at no cost to us. And we have moved that chaplain to an office in the Roman Capitol building. We thought it was a great idea having her right off the floor and easily accessible, but it turns out that people were worried about being seen going into the chaplain's office. So now she's off in another office that nobody can try to monitor anything. And she's seeing a lot more walk-in foot traffic. Our education and development team received our 2nd renewal of our APCO accreditation for our training program. And we continue to progress in providing the best services possible for our citizens and visitors. Our technology and cybersecurity improvements for network security and resiliency continue. OPCD has had no cyber incursions to date. We're continuing the aggressively transparent philosophy that I brought with me when I came to the position of responding immediately to any public inquiries, you guys' inquiries, and reporting out to you and the media and the administration anytime we have a problem, and in avoiding anything getting drawn out. Any complaints received are thoroughly investigated and a comprehensive report is sent. Underlying issues leading to errors are determined, modifications to training made and pushed to all personnel, and we continue our monthly recognition of our high-performing personnel. Our goals for next year are to continue all the positive activities we just talked about, complete the fire station alerting project, achieve full staffing to ensure we remain above the NENA call answering standard all the time, continue to work to improve retention of our employees. While our churn rate has dropped drastically since the last time I sat before you guys, we are still seeing more people leave than we really would like to. Interestingly enough, most of the reasons are not specifically workplace related. They are family issues, moving, et cetera. But we still want to try to hang on to people. We want to get our applications in for ACE and CALIA accreditation in order to provide external validation that we're doing everything right for our citizens and our public safety partners. And we are going to production implementation of two-way AI language translation for Spanish. We talked about this last year, but we held off in pushing it out while we let another couple of our peers who actually had bilingual call takers who could validate the automatic translation, and we are actually rolling it out as we speak. This will allow an AI to provide immediate two-way translation, translating the call taker's English statements into Spanish before we even can get an interpreter on board. These are our historical call and incident counts since 2022. You can see that 911 totals have dropped immediately following COVID and then have been climbing back up along with everything else. The incident volume in the right-hand columns for NOPD, EMS, FD, SPCA, and MCIU are all likewise slowly climbing over time. So we're getting more work to do, same number of people, trying to use our systems better to do so. This is a very dense slide, but last year you guys asked about 311 specifically, so we added additional information to it. I can speak to anything in particular that you might be interested in. This is our operations staffing broken down by job position. The important part is that we currently have 15 vacancies in operations, 10 of which are call takers and 3 of which are dispatchers. Go to the next one. Our admin or our support staffing personnel, we also have 3 vacancies. Our budget request excuse me, was concurred with by city administration and submitted to you guys in the ordinance with what we requested of $28,768,156. A total of $6.5 million of that we anticipate to come from 911 fees and the money that we received directly for that. That has pretty much remained stagnant for the last 5 years or dropped slightly in some years. Landlines are being eliminated. AT&T is actually no longer putting out any new landlines. They are only doing VoIP for any new customers that want home phones, et cetera. And while cellular devices are increasing, that is not a geometric increase anymore. We also have an issue with the carriers and the prepaid fees. They are choosing to interpret the legislation differently than intended and not submitting as much for that as they should be. We have a case open with the state auditor on that. The request of the city is $22 million. Personnel costs are $18 million, and operating costs not covered by the 911 fees are approximately $4 million. Personnel costs increase because we have more dispatchers qualifying as Dispatcher 2 and Dispatcher 3, able to dispatch more disciplines, which gives us flexibility in filling call-outs, et cetera, but those pay rates are higher for those employees. We had to add a provision for on-call pay for our tech staff and our facility staff in order to comply with federal requirements. We made an assumption when we submitted the budget of full operation staffing. The administrative vacancies likewise need to be filled because those functions are essential to our operation. We don't have any fluff positions in our org chart. We need every position we have. We also have a couple of one-time costs in our admin request. The video wall on the operations floor was deployed in 2012. The hardware is all well past end of life. We have been getting spares off of eBay, but even that source is dried up and we need to replace considerable portions of it. We've tried to do the best we could, but it's time. The total that we requested for that is the minimum required to ensure continued functionality. It will still require additional hardware in succeeding years, but we tried to keep it as low as we could. The ECS status, call queue status, FSA status are all displayed on those, and if we don't have that in operating form, our supervisors don't know who's on calls, who's not. They don't see that their call's waiting in the queues, et cetera. So it's really vital to our operations. Next. The NICE system used for fulfilling public records requests to pull radio audio, telephony audio, and CAD information. It likewise reached end of life, and We dropped the maintenance contract last year because the vendor was no longer providing any maintenance for it, but it is now continued to degrade, and it's going to die sometime in the next 6 months, and we will need to replace it, or our time to respond to public records requests, do investigations, and our ability to do quality assurance will be severely affected. Our Cisco telephony switch has reached end of life and requires hardware and software upgrades as well. Next. We are moving 311 telephony to the Carbine system, which is the cloud-native system we use for our 911 telephony. This will provide more reliability than the Cisco Call Center Express we have been using and allow us to kill that part of the Cisco UCM. It will also provide to our 311 personnel all of the functionality that's built into the 911 side with the automatic transcription and translation, the ability to get audio and video, the ability for the two-way translation in Spanish. As a result of a number of insurance claims over previous years, our carrier dropped us at the end of last year. We had to go to the marketplace with a broker in order to procure coverage for everything that we're required to have, and that increased our costs. Happy to report we don't have any major claims this year, and we're working with our new carrier's risk reduction team in order to try to eliminate any possibilities of claims. Finally, we're going to start an academy class in December. We are actively recruiting. We opened up the job posting for an ECS, and within 24 hours had 158 applicants. We are now going through the processing phase with those applicants of the critical testing, interviews, background checks, et cetera, and intend to start 10 to 12 new employees the beginning of December, depending on how many vacancies there are at that point in time. Again, I want to thank you guys for last year's January increase that let us do the payroll for everybody in 2024, rather. That has continued to pay dividends, as seen by the number of people applying in a very short time span. The morale on the floor is good. We have supervisors and teams that have instituted their own positive feedback for those who get full compliance or exceeds compliance on calls with candy trays and things like that. All kind of little stuff, but it's being driven from the ground up, which is really heartening to me. When we started 2024, because of the reduction in our budget, we were actually overstaffed in personnel, and we had to let attrition take place. I wasn't going to lay anybody off until we reached budget equilibrium about April of last year. Our call answer time started going up because we were short of call takers. We presented that case to the administration, and they authorized, as well as the increase in insurance and some replacement chairs we needed for our personnel on the floor. They authorized that mid-year allocation for us, and you guys approved it, and we graduated class of 14. The last one of them just got off of probation last week, and that's the reason that our answer times have gone back to being hanging right around the 90% now, because we got those people back. Once we get the additional 10 in December, they'll be off probation by the time Mardi Gras hits, and we should be banging it out of the park. Unfortunately, OPCD has no reserves. Y'all are aware of how all that happened and everything else, but as a result, we can't save to cover those systems that have died, and we have to request the additional money. That is a this year only type of request. Obviously, this is not the year to try to create a plan to rebuild those reserves, but we are working on it, and we'll do our best to do so. It got so bad last year that y'all are, I'm sure, aware of the Friday that we had the payroll glitch. That was caused by a problem in transmitting the funds that we had to ADP. Chase showed that they were sent, ADP showed they weren't received. If we had had reserves, we would have been able to just send the money again and let it all work out in the wash, but we literally didn't have enough backup to do that. So as a result, our payroll was delayed by 24 hours to our personnel. We did make arrangements to cut hard checks to them immediately for some funds if they had immediate bills to pay, et cetera, but I really don't want to get placed in that position again. So we're trying really hard to continue the fiscal conservative approach to make sure that we're covering everything we need to while still providing the best service possible. We're stuck in an issue because New Orleans is a relatively small city, quote unquote, but we have big city 911 problems. And the funding of that, unfortunately, falls on us, not the visitors that we get, who actually are about a third to 50% of our 911 call volume. So with that, if you guys have any questions, happy to answer.
Any, Councilmember Moreno?
Thank you. Good evening, Director Fossold. What is the latest with translation services?
So we had an issue with translation on one particular call in New Orleans East. The translator dropped off partway through, the caller making a very long explanation in Spanish. My call taker had no way to know the translator dropped off until she was waiting for the translation. She immediately did what she needed to do and got another translator on board, but that created additional time to process that call. That's why we are deploying the automated two-way translation, the AI Assist for Spanish right now. That will allow us to immediately begin talking to the caller even before we can get a translator on board. Unfortunately, that's only available in Spanish right now. The one-way transcription of the caller's information, what the caller says, is available in 82 languages automatically in the Carbine system. Unfortunately, on that same call, we had a glitch caused by the call taker hitting the wrong button sometime in the past and turning off that part of translation. So it led to a bunch of effects that basically made us take longer on that call and not handle it properly. But we have fixed all of that. We've talked to the vendor to get that ability to turn off that translation disabled. And we've also dealt with the training and the oops issues by our employee and taken the appropriate disciplinary action. She had some suspension time, she had some retraining, and she was monitored heavily following her return to work and has been doing exemplary. So we were happy not to lose a long-term employee over a single human mistake. We have people working, they make mistakes. Unfortunately, sometimes they have bad effects, but we do everything we can to avoid it. So I think we're positioned in a great place to move forward to not let any of that happen again.
And do you have an analysis of the different callers that come in speaking different languages? Like what percentage of your calls are in Spanish? What percentage of your calls are in Vietnamese? Do you have anything like that?
Don't have that with me. Our primary non-English speakers are Spanish, followed by Vietnamese, followed by Croatian.
Okay.
The Spanish and the Vietnamese are normally available from the translation service immediately. However, they only have so many people in their call center, and we work with our particular translation service because they have a staffed call center. They are not using on-call personnel at home in their jammies routinely, but if they are full in the people they have working at the time, they fail over to on-call employees. That's what happened in the call, and that cellular call between them and that translator is what dropped. So we were still connected to the translation service, we just didn't have the translator, and that's why my call taker couldn't tell that the translator was gone. If we have a glitch and it drops talking to their call center, it goes to the buzz, 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 et cetera, and we immediately know. But this was just a confluence of events that was terrible. And, you know, just like Murphy's Law happens, when something goes wrong, it goes wrong at the worst possible moment, and everything goes wrong.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'll be happy to supply those percentage of callers to you as a follow-up, though, ma'am.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Director Fasold, you said that we're a smaller city but have big city problems. How have other, particularly tourist destination cities, dealt with imposing fees or other things? So the tourists are paying for what's going on, but not all the residents.
Correct. Well, we and the rest of the 911 districts in the state actually have a meeting tomorrow to discuss pursuing an increase in 911 fees in general statewide. That hasn't been done for 10 years.
Okay.
So we are overdue on that. That will be for our residents again. But in talking with my peers, we heard some innovative ideas behind dedicated property taxes for 911. I don't like that idea because that's more on our citizens. But some other places have actually done something similar to the quarter for security in the quarter, with a minor sales tax increase in hotel room occupancy, et cetera. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any expertise in how to pursue that, and I was actually hoping that after the new council is seated in January, that we could perhaps get somebody on your side to assist us with pursuing that option to get a quarter for 911 or something on that effect that would have our visitors actually contributing to the 911 system for what their usage is. You know, as I said, our tourist calls are about 30 to 40% of our utilization. And that's strictly a by God estimate, looking at that area in general with call volume and other area codes calling us. A lot of people in New Orleans have outside area code phones too, but just to kind of get an idea, it's about 40%. And we would love to pursue that, but I don't have any expertise in-house to do it. And you know, I'm trying to figure out how to get started with that idea.
Right. Okay. Councilmember Morrell.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm happy to visit with you after this budget cycle to maybe put together a comprehensive legislative package for the session, because obviously when you're modifying hotel motel, that's a state legislative issue. But I think to your point, meeting with the other regional 911 directors, it would be very helpful for us to collectively ask for the increase, because I think that once you're able to show this is a way to pass the cost on and make it be shared by people who are visitors, I think it's a pretty easy win-win. Because I imagine the same budget woes you have are also felt in Shreveport, Baton Rouge, you know, Lake Charles, Lafayette. And if we can get them all together to say, this is something we all need, I think it's, like I said, I think generally speaking, pushing a quarter of a penny onto hotel motel should not be a hard sell if we can get everyone to agree it's necessary statewide.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. I'll follow up with you and follow up tomorrow with my peers.
Okay. All right. I don't have any comment cards, and that will conclude this presentation.
On a personal note, I want to thank you guys for the last, this is my third one now. I appreciate all the indulgences and all the help that everybody's given me in getting to this point with OPCD. I think we're at a great place. We're moving forward, and only good things are going to happen, knock on wood, from now on. Thank you guys for everything.
We appreciate you, your team's hard work and diligence. Thank you. All right, with that, members, I know we've advertised sort of that the meeting with the legislative auditor would start at 10. It is now 9:52. What I would suggest is we stand at ease for 8 minutes, just to make sure everybody who is supposed to be here is here, and we will resume at 10 o'clock. To the auditor and your team, you're welcome to come sit at wherever you want to, but we'll start at 10 o'clock. Thank you. For being here and for his team. We look forward to your findings. The floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, Mike Wagenspach, Louisiana Legislative Auditor. With me is Chris Robbins, a Senior 3 with our local government advisory work. So I want to first hand out, can someone hand out this report to your folks? I've got several copies.
No. Thank you.
And just for clarification, what we're handing out is a report where we did an advisory service work concerning the City of New Orleans budget deficit analysis. I know the word audit has been thrown out there a lot, but this is not an actual audit. Your audit is done annually. Your audit report for 2024 has been received by our office, prepared by Carl Riggs, and it is in good form. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But what we wanted to do is focus in the sense of urgency of timing, because you're in budget hearings now, was to really drill down and determine where you're at and where we expect the fund balance to be at year end. So we'll just go ahead and dive right in it. If we could turn to page 2 of this report. What we have here is an estimated spending deficit and remaining fund balance for year ending December 31st, 2025. So in Exhibit A, we got from the internal unaudited financial statements, which, by the way, city staff and finance folks were very cooperative, provided everything we requested. We've got a couple open items, but they've been worked hard to really fulfill the request timely. But if you look at the actual spend on revenues or collection of revenues of $596 million, and we anticipate that you'll pick up about another $172 million. So you should end the year with respect to the general fund consolidated revenues of $768 million. On the expenditure side, actual expenditures through September 29th, 2025 are $697 million. We anticipate you'll spend another $231 million. So for the year, we anticipate that spend to be $927 million, almost $928 million. So your spending deficit, this is a spending deficit. There's a lot of terms being thrown out there, a little confusion. Your spending deficit for this year is going to be about $160 million. So you spent more than what you've collected by $160 million. That's what we anticipate for this year.
Mr. Wagesback, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yep.
When you say spending deficit, that means operations that are the city of New Orleans?
Your general fund operation, your general fund, consolidated general fund, basically that is, that's your general operations, police, fire, general government.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
the reason why I'm asking is there's been I'm not trying to put you in your office in the middle of political debate, okay? I want to be very clear about
Sure.
that. But I also want to be equally clear what we're looking at here. And this is a result of the fact that departments have been overspending and they've been spending in other areas that were not included in the original budget.
We'll get into some discussion a little later on what some high-level items are
Okay.
that weren't budgeted.
Thank you.
Page 3 is where I want to present where we anticipate your fund balance to be. From your audit report, your most recent audit report, you ended December 31st, 2024 year with 205, I'll call it 206 million in fund balance. So that basically that was what was left over. That was your reserve, some committed, some uncommitted. But basically you had at your discretion 205 million going into this next budget cycle, 2025, which is where we're at now. With the deficit spending that's going to take place and finalized by December 31st, 2025, you're going to deficit spend about 160 million of that fund balance. So you should end up the year around 46 million positive fund balance. That's a good thing, but it's low fund balance. You have call it a rainy day fund or a savings fund that's required for you to sit on 37 million. Of course, you can do an ordinance to unlock that if needed. But $47 million on a close to $1 billion general fund budget is really running tight. You know, the GFOA groups recommend 13-14%. I'd say, 13-14% of your budget. You know, in a hurricane-prone area, you probably need to have a little more because, with the restructuring in FEMA and who knows what will happen with federal resources when that comes about. So let's just kind of look at page 5. And I kind of went back. Yes,
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you again.
Yep, you good.
So there is an amount of about $34 to $37 million that's in that rainy day fund. Does that mean there's only like $8 million that's true unbalanced surplus that's left? I mean, I want to make sure
That's correct. Yeah, so of your $46 million we anticipate by year end, 37 million is restricted as a savings fund and cannot be appropriated to next year unless you choose to.
Yeah,
pass an
I
ordinance.
just want to highlight that for everybody watching and listening, because what it really means is we have 37 million that is truly in an emergency fund. That's it. And then we only have in a $1.5 billion budget, $8 million to cover expenses. All right, thank you.
So if we go to 5, I kind of just want to break out a trend for you guys. Went back to 2019, the year prior to COVID, and this kind of just is an illustration of your revenues and your expenditures. All this comes from your audit reports other than what we've estimated for 2025. And, the bottom 2 rows of numbers are probably where you want to focus. And you can see the changes in fund balance. It was pretty much break even in 2019. We spent about $4 million more. We picked up $42 million in 2020. We picked up another $96 million in 2021. We picked up another $168 million in 2022. So that was kind of our peak fund balance of $403 million. However, in 23 and 24 is where the deficit spending started to occur, and it is, it's 76 million deficit spend on 23, another 121 million deficit spend in 24, and we anticipate 159 or call it 160 million deficit spend in 2025. And if you go to Exhibit D, that's just kind of a line chart that kind of graphs it out. The blue is the revenues, which increase and then started to decrease. The red is the expenditures, which went down a little bit, but then started to go up and has remained above revenues. And as a result, the green, which is your fund balance, shot up in 2022, 23, and 23 it started to go down. And again, $46 million. And as you said, Councilman Giarrusso, of that, really what you can only appropriate at this point in time into your next budget year is about $8 million. So we had some recommendations, and we've kind of discussed that with staff. Some of it they agree, sometimes they disagree, but we truly believe that one, you need to amend your current year budget. We need to get that done before, as now, you'll probably have to do it again before year end. Revenue estimates, we just got to be better at doing projections there. I think there was maybe some over-optimism in some budgeting for revenues. I know the Super Bowl, Taylor Swift, I've heard a lot of discussions about some of the big events that may not have turned into big tax collections or as much as we would have anticipated. So there's going to have to be constant revisions of looking at the revenue estimates throughout the year. One thing that's real important, I feel, is a big gap is this monthly budget to actual reporting. You guys need to see this on a monthly basis. There's some debate, they say, well, we provide this, we provide that. No, we need an actual report that shows that actual spend from the brass system, what was supposed to be budgeted and put into the brass system, and just a realistic budget to actual so that you can address this deficit spending immediately.
I'm gonna stop you again in real time on this, because somebody went on the radio this morning saying the council was aware of all of this. I just want to make sure that, again, the legislative auditor is saying that the council did not receive actual monthly budget to actual.
I have not been provided, my staff hasn't been provided anything that shows that was given. I think I've spoken to 1 or 2 council members and said, no, we don't see it. So it needs to happen, and when we're developing this budget, we really just need to budget what we anticipate to spend. I mean, we can't budget positions that we think we're not going to fill. We know we're not going to fill historically.
The CFO would like to weigh in now.
Good morning, Romy Samuel, Director of Finance, along with Frida Richardson Taylor. The monthly reports are provided to council. We started as a summary. I know we've gone through the draft report by Mr. Wagaspat, and it started off as a summary, which is one of the recommendations, but council requested more detail. So now it's more detail, but council is provided with the detailed report on a monthly basis. We do show up for budget committee meetings to answer the questions about the report and are open and receptive to any questions prior to them.
But Ms. Samuel, in fairness, like you all admitted just yesterday that until we asked, overtime was not part of those reports.
I think that's a budget question, but we started this
But it's related exactly to this issue.
Absolutely, but this conversation started a year ago. In all fairness, it started a year ago.
So, I mean, you all, listen, let me ask you a question. Under the charter, who is responsible for making sure there's a balanced budget?
It's the CAO's office, right? The administration?
And the
And the-
CFO?
Okay.
All right.
But
So,
if things are added-
hang on. Let me get to, you know where my question is. You don't like what the question's going to be, but I'm going to
go
ask
ahead.
it. The question is, if the budget isn't balanced, should the administration allow it to be presented to the council? Yes or no?
I think the administration did present a balanced budget, but it was the add-ons that became the problem.
And who prepared the add-ons?
The council.
No, that is a falsehood.
Okay.
That
it
is
was-
a falsehood.
I think it was a collaborative effort
No.
between council and.
No, the
the previous
amendment was
CAO.
prepared by the CAO's office, and
Okay.
it says by request.
Okay,
What does by request mean?
you tell me.
You don't know what by request means?
I'm sure by the administration.
That it literally means by the administrator.
But
It
the
is coming,
council
ma'am,
also
it
takes
comes from the
responsibility
request.
for a budget because
I don't disagree with that fact, but what I'm saying to you is, you all try to continually absolve yourselves from all responsibility.
that is
Yes,
not
the
correct.
answer is
That is not
absolutely-
true.
correct.
That
I
is,
have
that
always
is,
said
that
it
is,
was a
that is
shared
100%
responsibility.
correct.
No. I
Yes.
have always said it was a shared responsibility because I know it was both the
How
administration
can
and
we
the
have a
council.
shared responsibility when we don't know overtime, ma'am? It can't be a shared
Okay,
responsibility.
but we also talk about 60 million in addition
That,
on
that,
top of what was presented.
so the
Listen,
100 million that got overspent that's okay? We're just going to forget about all of that?
Absolutely, none of it is okay. We're trying
but-
to find solutions, but we also have to recognize everyone's role in this. We all share responsibility, and we have the responsibility of moving us out of this issue.
But you say we all share responsibility, and I agree to the fact that we all share responsibility to try to put something together that serves the people of New Orleans, and that we should be working constructively to do that.
Absolutely.
I agree with you about that.
Absolutely.
What I 100% disagree with you about is that the amount of information the CEO and the CFO has is equal to the information the council has.
We can only, and I'm speaking for the CFO's office, if we are at the table, we can certainly participate. If I, in this position, was not brought to the table, I can't participate. If meetings are had outside of all of the folks that you just mentioned, there's nothing I can do about that. When presented with information, then I can respond. But if I'm not able to participate on the front end,
Well,
I
okay.
cannot do that.
All right, well, let me ask this question. When NOPD was running overtime in January and February, when was that presented either by the CFO or the CAO to the council?
I think that is in the budget report.
That's not real, that's not my question. My question, I know it's in the report. My question is, what are you telling the council, and what is being done in order to ensure that the overtime isn't running up the meter?
So if I am clear, if there are exceptions or things that jump out, that should jump out, I think you have a fiscal team that can provide some clarification if there is something that the council needs to know that we all deem important.
But
We-
that-
we
you're not answering my
assume-
question.
We assume that
not
you
answering my
are-
question.
No, we assume you read the reports.
Yes, but.
We
but-
assume that.
we-
If we
yes,
give you the
okay,
data,
that-
if we
that's
take the
true.
time to prepare the information, we assume that you consume those reports. So what you're telling me is that we provide a 100-page report by council request that you don't read.
That's not, ma'am, that is false, because
Well, I'm
we
just
brought
saying,
this
you're
up.
saying-
No, here's the issue. We get the report after the fact. The money's already been spent by the time we got it.
Okay?
We can't stop that from happening. The administration stops that from happening. And in fact, the reason why we had the meeting in January is because we saw what the numbers were. We're the ones who raised that issue, not y'all.
I'm sorry,
And
we
I'm
raised
tired.
the issue
We
in
raised the
June.
issue in June of 2024.
2024.
That's not
With
true.
what? With what? Your budget didn't reflect that?
Yes, it did.
Yes, it did,
You
sir.
all, I mean, I just don't this is revisionist history. It is revisionist history, because you all keep on saying, we didn't know. Whether you like it or not, the fact of the matter is there's an administration with the mayor at the top of it. There's a CAO and a CFO. You all are supposed to work in tandem. There are departments underneath all of those places. You all are supposed to work with them. We cannot live in a world where we say we are a team, except for when NOPD and fire and EMS and everybody else overspends. And by the way, we've done nothing to stop it. Plus, hang on, plus when we raised this issue in January, we were told we're going to put a lid on it and we're going to stop it.
No, I think I raised the issue in January.
Well, whoever
Because-
raised it,
well,
whoever.
but it's important because
Well,
one.
no, we raised the
have-
issue
no,
too,
no,
Ms.
no.
Samuel.
I think
No,
it's
we
important
absolutely did
that
because you're saying we didn't
receive-
raise the issue.
The problem is, you do not rely on the folks that do this every day. And it's a disservice to the finance department and the team that works together because we don't do this
So,
job alone. Wait a minute,
Okay.
I'm speaking.
I will
We
give you your time.
talked, we came in June, had the financial advisors to come in and explain in detail the overuse of fund balance. We talked about that before the budget season started. The budget season began, the mayor and the administration, we all submitted a budget that was balanced with use of fund balance. That doubled almost because there were certain things added after the fact when that budget was passed. In January, we did a revenue analysis. And we have the presentations, you all certainly have that information, of why this was a risk. We understood, we talked about it. It was about what the council received. I'm not saying everyone on the council, but it was basically, maybe you didn't trust the information. We proved that. We also came in with a third party and did the same exact thing. But the unwillingness to receive it from people who were doing it boots on the ground every day is frustrating.
Ms. Samuel, here are my two problems, maybe three problems with that. Number one is if the fund balance was 205 and the council added 60, that takes it to 133, right?
Okay?
Okay, well, now it's 8 million. So we didn't spend that money, and nor did we allocate one amendment that gave more overtime to any of the departments.
Okay,
The
in
no,
light
no,
of-
let me,
go ahead.
you asked for, I'm asking for the same
Absolutely.
thing. So when the specter was raised in January, whether you raised it, whether we raised it, I will be ambivalent on that point.
Mm-hmm.
How did the administration spend more money without ever coming to the council for an amendment to increase spend?
I would have to defer to the budget team on that one.
I mean.
We pay the bills, council member. Listen, we pay the bills. What we asked was, we asked last year, please consider all the things that happened, legislative action and the threat to revenue. We asked for you to consider that. The council says over and over that they are in charge of the purse strings. Because this is an active relationship, we have to work with one another to get this thing done. The issue is, we knew that there was an assault on revenues through the legislature. We said that the governor, not only in the special session, but in the fiscal session, would come back and address those things. So there was further threat that
was
we
$8
asked for
million.
consideration on.
It was
Wait.
$8 million.
But then we had things to happen, snowstorm, terrorist attack. We asked for consideration early.
But
for
that
you
didn't have to
consider
do
those
with
things.
you all ran
You
a
keep
70.
saying overtime, that is also a consideration if we had course corrected. And listen, I have had questions and conversations with the budget team and the CAO's office about the same thing. The issue is if we know, then we have to prepare.
But
But
you all
we
didn't
cannot
do
just
that.
assume, and I think what we've also talked about, just because you write it into the budget or on paper, that does not equate to money in the bank. It is a plan to spend. So when we say we have to be very careful about what we budget, you also have to bump that up against the revenues that are coming in to fund the plan.
But if the budget was 145 million that we budgeted for NOPD, and the city spent 185 million without ever once coming to the council for a budget amendment to do that, that is an
I would defer to
no,
Ms.
but see, you
Ms.
can't do that, Ms. Samuel.
Absolutely.
No,
I don't
no,
do-
you
I
cannot.
don't-
You all are
I
a
don't-
team.
I don't
You
regulate
cannot-
that.
You cannot be in a position of, this is the fallacy with your argument.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot be in a position of, we're all a team and we all work together, and then lay everything at the blame of the CAOs.
It's not the blame. No, let me be clear. if we were a team, we would have addressed this a long time ago.
So you're
And
not a
we-
team?
No,
Is that what
I'm
you're
talking
saying?
about the council and the administration.
Well, why didn't you bring
Listen-
us an amendment? Why didn't anybody bring us an amendment on overtime at any point? I'm going to ask this question. Hold on
Okay.
one second. By show of hands, everybody sitting on the dais, did anybody with the administration ever approach any of you for an amendment for any overtime spending related to any city department? Well, I'm going to wait a little bit longer. No, that's a no.
We didn't submit one.
No. So my point is, you all have a spending problem, and you keep on trying to blame the council for it.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Okay.
Really.
Listen, I'll acknowledge, even though, and I'd ask Ms. Brandy DeLarge to speak up on this one, but when I said we had a spending, absolutely, I meant both of us. Absolutely. That was in the presentation. I was told I was manufacturing a crisis. We were told that succinctly. So when we provided the numbers, nobody received it. It fell on deaf ears. Hold on.
That's not true either.
Okay, but what
That's not
did we
true.
do
That's
to
not true.
correct it?
Wait, hold on one second.
What did
Hold
we
on
do
one
to
second.
correct it?
Because Councilmember Morale, I remember, asked specifically at that meeting, do we need to have austerity right now?
Absolutely.
And you answered,
I did. But he was talking about $35,000 versus 70.
no, this is back in
7 million.
January. This is back in January.
This was
And
travel,
then
right?
Councilmember, no, this is when he asked in January, do we need
That
to have
was the
austerity?
result of that conversation. Travel was banned. Am I correct?
No. It was about, do we need to institute austerity the whole way around? And then, hold on,
what was happening then?
Councilmember Thomas maybe asked some of the best questions during that meeting. He said, are we going to have to curtail spending for trash pickup? Are we going to have to curtail spending for kids at parks? Are we going to have to curtail our spending? And what was the answer?
Who spoke on that, Mr.
I mean,
Montaigne?
it doesn't matter.
No.
You keep on
I
saying
said,
that y'all are
listen,
the same team.
What I said, and I cannot speak for anyone who served in the CAO's position, I said that we need to prioritize. To the questions that were there, I said we have to take a serious look at the initiatives, which were all good programs, but we just did not have the funding for that.
I think you all
Mr.
need to do,
Druso?
wait, hang on one second. I think you all, I'm about ready to cede the floor, but I think you all need to do a lot more introspection and realize that y'all are a team. And that you win as a team, you win as a team and you lose as a team. And the same thing is true for us as council members. I'm one of 7, and we all get credit, praise, but we also get things said about us as a group. We fail as a team, we rise as a team, and y'all aren't acting as a team. And that's what's disappointing to me, is the fact that you want to be like, we did everything right, it's all the CAO's fault. And I'm just refused to accept that, because the bottom line is, you're an administration who's supposed to work in tandem. I mean, all I heard yesterday was, this is a silo, that's a silo, we don't communicate with each other. And I mean, that just is not going to work, period. Councilmember Morale, Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you. You keep talking about the programming. Let's concede that the council fund was $7 million. Let's concede the school board settlement was $20 million. Mr. Wagesback, what's the spending deficit again?
160 million.
Okay. What about the rest? You
The
keep talking about the
102 that-
council, you keep talking about the council overspending. What council programs
They had 60 million.
in the overspending amount, $160 million? I'll concede, under your logic, the school board settlement, council fund, it's $27 million. What about the other $133 million?
Okay,
How's the
let's
council
talk,
responsible for
okay?
that?
So 40 million was proposed in the budget by the administration. 60 million was added by council, right? Or by request, but that was in, I guess, working together with the administration?
No, by request. I love how you cannot redefine a term because it suits you. By request, Brandy, please weigh in on this. Mr. Threat, come up here because you're going to be in the list too. By request, and I know you keep feigning ignorance of this issue, by request means the administration gives something to the council to file on their behalf. That is
meeting-
what by request means.
Okay.
Can we acknowledge that common fact?
I am not ignorant to the fact. What I am expressing to you is, if there were meetings that did not include me about these
Who
discussions.
do you work for?
I work for the city of New Orleans. I
Okay.
work for the mayor
Who your direct supervisor is the mayor of the city of New Orleans, correct?
and the CAO.
Okay. They are your team. If they are not inviting you into the room, whose fault is that?
That's on them.
Okay. So if you had concerns regarding the budget and how money was being spent, and you were not invited into the room to voice those concerns, whose fault is that?
That's on that individual. And I did voice my concern.
Nope, I hear you. So we agree upon two facts so far. By request means from the administration, okay? Second, you were not invited into the room to express your concerns. Now, Mr. Threat, come up here to that third mic for a second. When we budgeted, and I appreciate because you're actually solving this problem for 2026. When we were presented with the budget for 2025, did the administration account for, Brandy, overtime?
We did not.
Okay. We did not account for overtime at NOPD, at any of those different, so the administration's proposed budget, overtime was not included.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Wagaspak, from your analysis, where is the largest portion of this deficit coming from?
Well, for, for 2025, the city budgeted 57,500 for overtime. Year-to-date through September 29th, we've spent 40 million in overtime.
40 million.
40
Okay.
million. And that's a kind of a trend because in 2024, we budgeted close to 10 million for overtime, but the actual turned up to be 47 million. So that's kind of where I was going earlier.
And from my limited analysis, not as budget chair, Brandy, the reason why we never were exposed to overtime spend is because previously we had over budgeted to NOPD, correct?
Correct. For multiple, so the 2023 budget, when we built that budget, all vacant positions were removed. So like NOPD, if they had 1,200 in the budget, we only had 1,000 filled. Those 200 vacant positions, we were able to
Absorb the overtime.
absorb it in any other department. So it didn't become a issue for us to really look at until 23, 24, 25, because we didn't have that extra budget dollars to pull from, correct?
So basically, what we saw in 2025 this year is that because NOPD was over budgeted, they could absorb the overtime cost. But in 2025, we actually budgeted for a department at its current size, correct?
Correct.
So in the
Without the
proposed
overtime.
budget by the administration did not account for overtime.
Correct.
Okay. And we're looking through the budget. There are other departments besides NOPD that had significant overtime spend, correct?
Correct.
And all of that-
Councilmember Morrell, I mean, when we talk about those events, snowstorm of January, terrorist event, it's not only NOPD.
Right,
It's
it's everybody.
fire, EMS, public works, sanitation. They're all working overtime,
well,
including Mardi Gras.
Right, and so the challenge is, because Mardi Gras went to Tier 1, which meant we had even more overtime for NOPD. What is evident from when looking at the budget is that the budget that was passed was actually balanced based upon what costs were in the budget. Overtime and a lot of unforeseen expenses increased that to well beyond what we had budgeted for.
Or they weren't budgeted. Overtime was not budgeted. And I think in my briefings, executive briefings, that's the first thing I noticed was the long pole in the tent, was that usually in my career, I usually get a projection, 90-day projection for overtime that I approve. So that process was not in place, and that's what we need to fix.
And I guess, because I'm trying to get undisputed facts, after January, after February, when the budget was exploding because of overtime, was there any effort by any of the departments to be told to curb overtime?
I don't believe so.
So as we knew that overtime was beginning to overtake as an issue, there was no active effort to tell any departments curb the overtime.
And, my capacity to September,
Right.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Mr. Wagaspak, from your analysis, was there any internal efforts to curb overtime?
Not that we've seen.
Okay. So was there any efforts since January to curb any spending that you saw before Mr. Threat came in?
I haven't seen it, no.
Okay.
And, attachment A, if you want to go back into the details, it shows you line item by line item from their general ledger, all the revenue sources, all the expense sources. And just to talk about overtime, if we go to page 19 of that exhibit, or page 19 of the report, go down close to the end, just to kind of demonstrate what we're talking about. There's a line item called overtime. And again, as I stated, it was 57,500 budget. This is our actual to date through September, and the third column is what they spent in 2024. So this is very detailed, and honestly, this is probably something that we should prepare for you guys monthly in the brass system, build that budget monthly into the system, and you can look at variances on a monthly basis to capture that when it goes into the red.
Mr. Wagesback, this is kind of like the number one thing I want to address going forward, going into a next term. The issue that I have seen, and it differs in the state budget, is that when the executive runs into a problem where they are spending more than what is allowed, isn't it required at the state level to go interact with the Joint Committee on the Budget to move money around? It is required before you can spend money to go back to the budget branch to get approval, correct?
Absolutely.
And the missing piece here is how in the heck do you deficit spend without having to go back to the council to have a conversation on, we are over budgeted and continuing to spend?
And another thing I'll point out that gets a little confusing, and maybe this is because of the way brass works. On page 18, I will kind of go down towards the end, and you'll see in what's called miscellaneous, that's miscellaneous revenue, there's 64 million. What that number really is, the majority of it is basically the portion of prior year's ending fund balance that we're using to sort of plug the budget. You follow me? So when you're looking at this, if the outside user is looking at this, they think, well, that's great, 63 additional miscellaneous revenues are coming in. No, that's the portion of your prior year fund balance that's being used to plug the gap. So we got to present our budget a different way. We got to have the beginning fund balance, revenues, expenditures. Here's the ending fund balance after we spend deficit or have a surplus. So it's kind of.
And I think it's really interesting because I think the public assumes because they operate their own budgets at home that there is a forward-facing checkbook that has how much is in the account, how much is left the account, and that is not so much the case. This document is actually more like a checking account where you're seeing how much money do we actually have versus how much money we're spending and how many checks are we floating.
Yeah, for a household budget, you have the income, you have the expenses. That's not W-2 revenue, that's cashing a CD in.
Right.
To backfill for the expense.
So I mean, to your point, and I don't know if we need to do this by ordinance or the like, we should have a balance book that is presented to us each month with how much is being spent versus how much money we have. And part of the challenge is that what the city has done for years is with revenue estimating, we talk about, well, more money is going to come in. And we always trying to look at the budget from the perspective of budgeting prospectively saying, well, we'll have more money coming in at the end of the year, so this will work itself out. What you're suggesting is, no, on February 1st, you need to know how much money you're spending, how much money's in the account, and whether or not we are at a deficit already and chasing the hope that the revenue will address that deficit.
Correct.
And so I think this is an excellent suggestion. I think it's something we should adopt, but more importantly, and this is why, honestly, this is probably going to have to be a charter amendment. We actually passed ordinances requiring the administration come to us when they move money around, and they've never done it. Because under the charter, under advice from legal counsel, they were told they don't have to because the charter does not require them to give us that level of deference. So I think going forward, to your point, if we made this budget more like a regular legislative budget, whenever you want to move money around, whenever you want to deficit spend, there has to be a public hearing saying, where's the money going to come from? Because right now, we're in a hole, And there is no requirement that anyone tell us before the spending happens where the money's going to come from. Right now, we're just truing up to figure out what are we going to cut to cover the spending. We should have said before you spend the money, where is the money coming from? Because that is why we're at this massive deficit. There is no requirement that if you spend money we don't have, before you spend the money, you tell us what you're going to cut. If we had to spend money because of Mardi Gras, because of the terrorist attack, what would have happened at the state level is that the governor would have been required to go to the legislative committee on the budget and go, guys, we're spending more money than we have. I have to cut these departments to spend this money. We are caught dealing with the cuts on the back end after the money is spent. That is an untenable position for anybody to keep the book straight. And I want to reiterate what Joe said and what Brandy said. No one came to us and said, hey, we're $55 million over budget. Can we have permission to spend more money? That, and I mean, your time in the CAO's office, has any CAO been required to come to the council before they spend money?
That has not happened. I do think the charter provision says we're supposed to if we're going to be outside the revenues. But I also want to say that I wanted to thank your team. The call that we had yesterday was helpful, and I didn't notice it until after the fact, because at some point I was a little worked up on the call, because I thought, like this report, for example, I think that we have provided month-to-month budget actuals. However, when I look at the format of it, the format may not be something that is the best way to look at it, right? We have like a personnel, because it does show you the budget, it shows you these pieces, so it could be a different format. And I'll give an example. The request yesterday was about overtime, so we sent the request for overtime, and I said, if it's another format requested, send it to us. We'll send you another format, because someone looking at that is a lot of busy information on that sheet as we go through there, right? So I'm not saying that we didn't present it, but it doesn't mean there's not a better way for us to provide the information. And I think one of the recommendations we had yesterday from the LLA was for us to work with council on best practices, best information we can provide, so that both teams have the information that's needed to make the necessary adjustments throughout the year.
Thank you. That's my question.
Yeah, I just, before I get to Councilman Thomas, I think I want to say this more succinctly. There are two issues here. Issue number one is that the departments were allowed to overspend, that there was no process in place to stop that from happening, and that there was no reporting up the line to get to a point to put a cap on that. That's number one. Problem number two is, after it's done, nobody came to the council and said, now we have to file amendments to take this up, to Councilmember Morell's point. Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you for the opportunity. I don't usually disagree with my budget chairman because I trust him, but there are systems in place within the department. If you look at the history of the way departments that were created, they are fiscal agents or budgeting positions within those departments. An example, within the police department, there are people who have jobs who are supposed to alert the fact of how spending, and if overtime kicks into place, how it affects the overall budget. An example, so all the other stuff sounded good, but let's get into the weeds with this. The police department got a 5% increase from 23 to 25. Then that was going to automatically affect their overall budget. So where was the internal call, especially given the fact that the 5% increase would in turn, because if you look at the police department, let's kind of educate folk a little bit. Recruits to lieutenants, Mr. Chairman, can actually work 56 hours each, which is more than a regular budgeted work week, but they can be allowed or given permission to do that. So with the 5% increase, that was automatically going to affect the allotted budget. What happened within the department where someone was supposed to sound the alarm to say, well, hold on a second now. If we have a 22 to 25, a 23 to 25, 5% increase, it's going to be compounded over a couple years, along with the fact that recruits to lieutenants can work 56 hours, we need to readjust. We need to take a look. Did anyone sound that alarm? Did anyone within the department analyze that? And it would be interesting to me to see if there are any receipts or conversations within the department because there are a few steps that ought to happen before they get to the finance department, before they get to the CAO, before they get to the mayor, and ultimately before they get to the council. That's how it's always worked, that I know it was supposed to work. And then the other thing is, I'd always thought that the CAO's office is supposed to meet with the budget experts within those departments. I don't know how often, but to talk about where spending is, if you have increases, if you have budget adjustments, how is that going to affect the adopted budget or approved budget for that fiscal year? So ultimately, at the end of the day, for the public, it looks like a who's on first, a Abbott and Costello meeting, because the central figure in those discussions was supposed to be the chief administrative officer, on down to whoever those fiscal agents were within those departments. And I don't think that changed. If you would look at each department, there are people whose jobs are within those departments to monitor the budget. But the last thing I'll say is that we have October, November, December, January. And first of all, thank you for your help, Mr. Auditor, but you're not going to fix it. What's going to fix it is the work that has to happen here in the next several months to make sure that the best possible budget is given to the public. But as someone who understands how government is supposed to operate, not just talking, there are steps within the process that should have protected us from getting to this point. And in many cases, we're blaming the folk who are here now because those precautions and those conversations should have happened with the last CAO, period.
Agreed. I just needed to get back up here. The Finance Department, in conjunction with CAO, we provide numerous reports on a monthly basis, 131 pages of reports. If the City Council is going to ordinance to do something different, I request that when you do the ordinance, that you do away with the ones that we already do, so we're not producing so many reports that you're not utilizing, and have us utilize the report that you need, so that we're not overworking.
Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you. Good morning. Okay, just a couple questions. So it seems that, for the previous budget, Ms. Samuels, I think you felt like you were not necessarily at the table. For this upcoming budget, do you feel like you have been at the table with the CAO's office and the preparation of the 2026 budget?
Well, absolutely. Mr. Threat is more than accommodating, but the conversation began with over-reliance on fund balance, and that was the focus back in 2024 that led up to now. So we did listen. It is our financial fiduciary responsibility to tell the story, regardless if it's popular or not. We have a responsibility to do that. We did that at length with the previous CAO, Gilbert Montano, as well as we presented that to the budget chair, because I did send a letter to both Councilmember Giarrusso and Mr. Montano about this. But we talked about this leading up to it, that we could not rely heavily on fund balance. And this is why we're here today. But we've always been open to collaboration. We have to work together. That's what's important, because it's the city that's the priority.
But you feel like the input that you have provided to the CAO, working collaboratively with Mr. Threat, has resulted in the budget that we have received?
Well, based on the information that we do have, budget takes the lead on that. We certainly sit as advisors, but we can only tell you what is actually available, what's in the bank. And that's the information
I'm just trying to make sure the team is in place.
Listen, we've always been open to working together. That has not been an issue, other than when we weren't invited. So
You've been invited?
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
You've been invited to participate
Absolutely.
in the 2026 budget?
Absolutely.
Okay. My second question, and I only have a couple. My second question has to do with overtime. And Mr. Threat, this question is for you if you're still here. Oh, sorry, couldn't see you. Come on up, Mr. Threat. So, and thank you, Ms. DeLarge, for sending me the information on overtime. I appreciate it. For the projections of overtime 2 years in, it looks like it would be roughly around $50 million for this year. Mr. Threat, have you sent out the alert to city departments, even to public safety, about working to curtail overtime?
Yes. Well, I took over on the 2nd of September. I think took me a week or two to get into the numbers with budget and with the finance director, and soon after I issued, they had issued believe in January, a curtailment of spending, but I issued 2 circulars to restrict overtime to all departments, hiring freeze and also a travel freeze. And I sat down with each one of my departments, starting with NOPD, to find a way to restrict overtime and still provide those services to the public as possible. We have a daily 8:30 check-in with the Director of Finance, Romy Samuels, and myself. And we also have every Friday, we have a cash management meeting to where I sit down with finance and actually go through the funds, see what responsibilities the city has to pay as far as invoices and other contracts, and then we manage that every week. So it's a daily check-in with finance, it's a weekly cash management meeting. I asked all the departments to give me a 90-day spend plan to take us through Mardi Gras, so we can kind of manage the funds and make sure we still provide service and get through the holiday seasons and into the new year.
So you're saying even with the restrictions that you put in place, that we're still looking to spend roughly from now until year's end, if Mr. Wagasback says, to this point, we've spent 40, and your projections say to the year end, it's 50, we're going to spend another $10 million in overtime
I would
between now and
assume,
the
because
end of the year.
it's known historicals, and when I sit down with my departments, it's things that we know. Through hurricane season, we know that we're gonna get a couple of events. We got Mardi Gras, New Year's, the holiday season. There's overtime for all the departments built into those different events.
Okay, I'm talking about just for this year, though.
This year,
Got it.
yes.
Okay, so then the other question is, Ms. DeLarge, you'd mentioned that for 2024, there was a $10 million projection and built into the budget for overtime. Is that correct?
I didn't say that. There was a total oh no, Mr. Wagasback mentioned that
Okay.
total, yes.
Okay, and then this year, there was, for 2025, there was only 56,000? roughly?
57,500.
Okay, what's in this budget now for 2026 for overtime?
24 million.
24 million. Okay, great.
And Councilmember Moreno, that number is low.
I understand that. I understand that.
Yeah, it is low, but we knew, so during the budget meetings last year, we did disclose that overtime was not included, so we didn't hide that fact. We knew that we could not build the budget again. We worked with what we could to put the bulk of the 24 million going to NOPD, then EMS and fire, and then other departments received a little bit as well for this
Got it.
upcoming budget.
Yeah, and based on that, what we built for 2026 is without any of the ordinances we pushed forward for revenue generating. We've got working on a task force right now to support revenue, ground transportation, code enforcement, safety and permits, and then looking at other ways we can increase fines and penalties with parking.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Green.
Mr. Threat, Councilmember Moreno Council Vice President Moreno just asked a question. I wasn't quite totally confident with the answer. We have 10 million more that we absolutely project that is going to be spent on overtime right now between now and the end of the year.
Yes, I believe so, and I
And
think
that is-
Councilmember Green.
That's because of what, for example?
It's
It's
because-
not previous events, and it's not next year's Mardi Gras. Is it
No.
that do we have a structural overtime spending, for example, in the police department?
We've got
due to shortages?
historical. We've got big events coming down. We got NBC rapper coming to town this weekend. We got Bayou Classic. The holiday time with Christmas. So we're gonna go through overtime during that time.
So we're spending overtime because of the shortage of officers?
And not only that,
shortage, I
you
hate
got to
to use that
look
word.
at, our posture changed after January 1st. So now, every time we have an event, we've got a physical security platform that we've got to put throughout the city with barricades, more police officers, fire, EMD, and we're pushing a lot more out right now to protect the city.
Right. And look, I just want you to know I asked that question to be able to answer in advance the questions that someone might ask and say, well, why don't you just stop spending on overtime? Well, it's because of our posture now in terms of how we need to be prepared for those major events that you talked about.
Right, exactly. And another thing, a point of interest is when we're Tier 1 with Department of Homeland Security, DHS can come into town with a lot of advice and recommendations, but it's supposed to be a purse string that comes with that. We did not get reimbursed for any of those Tier 1 events. That's the terrorist event, Sugar Bowl, Super Bowl, and Mardi Gras. We had no reimbursement, and the snowstorm was an emergency declaration that we should have got from FEMA. We didn't get that declaration either.
Are we pursuing it, and what avenues are available?
I
for us
had
to
had
pursue
conversations with General Mafus up at GOSEP, and he told me that the state at some point might pursue some of those fundings.
money? The state might pursue and then make the reimbursements available to
Hopefully.
the city?
Hopefully.
So the city can't apply directly, it has to
No,
come through the state?
no, we're sub-applicant.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Giarrusso, I didn't bring up one thing, but I think that I'm going to bring it up, and it's not really on you, Mr. Threat, but I think that what we see during the year and what we've seen from 2024 is a communications gap, but I'm not necessarily certain that the communications gap is something that we pursued or made happen ourselves. For example, we participated in a press conference where the CAO joined us and announced that we would have a $20 million settlement with the school board. No matter what you feel about that settlement, the fact is that the administration, represented by the CAO, came together with members of the council and announced that there would not be a problem with making that payment. Within 10 days, we were being told that there was a problem making that payment, and I mean a cash problem making that payment. That's an example of some of the communications that I kind of question why. For example, I understand, Ms. Samuels, you said that maybe you weren't included in that conversation, but if you were not included in that,
Untrue.
No. Oh, okay, well, then, see, that's something.
There's
I think-
email, there's emails. There's
So you got
emails.
emails?
They're just, it's false.
Right, okay, well,
Yeah, ma'am, I produced them at the January meeting, and I'm happy to do it again.
Okay.
You are on the emails.
Okay, and the letter
I'm
that I
sorry if
sent
you
to
did
both
not
you
read
and
them.
Gilbert.
I'm sorry if
well,
you did not
The letter I
read
sent
those
to
emails.
both you and Gilbert on January 27th,
That was
that was,
after the
the
thing
city's
was
financial
suspected.
standing has reached a critical juncture. And
Yes.
as budget chair, that's why I sent you, included both of
And
you
that
and
was
Gilbert.
after we passed the budget, after we did all of those
right,
things.
absolutely,
And
and we had
also,
a
if I
problem.
remember correctly, didn't your reports change $60 million between the one you presented to me in
That was
council
because
upstairs?
the session, it was in session. The things,
3
the
weeks?
bills that were in session, namely food and drug, which was $30 million by itself, did not pass. We had to put everything that was in play, that was on the table for sales tax exemption in the report. After the session closed, those bills did not pass.
Ms.
So that's
Daniel,
why it changed.
I'd love to come back and operate in your world where I can just
That's okay,
recreate that.
and that's fine. I
really,
I'm trying to
because
find
I
out
will
what
make
financial
sure,
law you operate
I
in
will make
too.
sure, Alean.
Absolutely.
Please get the budget memo, and before we leave today, I'm gonna make sure I read the email that has your name on it.
Okay.
Where we talk about the $10 million added to the city budget for the NOPS settlement.
So, and we can share the letter that I sent to both you and
The
Gilbert
email
about
was
it.
in January after
this
we
was in
passed the
January
budget.
as well.
No, it was not, ma'am. We passed the
Okay.
budget November 21st.
I have it here. I'll forward it to the council.
But that has nothing, you were
but
mixing
listen,
apples. No,
why
you
are we
keep on
debating
talking over me,
something?
and I'm tired of it, all right? I'm tired of you
you're doing
talking
the
over
same.
me.
You're doing the same.
Ma'am, you keep on interrupting me, and you keep on interrupting me.
Okay.
And if I've interrupted you, I will say I am sorry,
Absolutely.
and I will back
And
off
you
from that.
should. Absolutely.
And I will. And
Absolutely.
you are afforded that right, as I am afforded
Okay.
that right. But let's not reinvent history here,
Okay.
all right? Here,
And we have
let's-
evidence. We do.
let's-
We have presentations to support our
You
position.
just interrupted me again.
I apologize.
All right. Let's go through the evidence. The evidence is that we presented what we were going to do in an email that you were copied on.
Tell me exactly what it is.
I will tell you, we will get you the email before the close of this meeting. Hang on.
Okay.
There is an amendment prepared by the administration that adds to the budget. Did you see that amendment?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you object to that amendment?
Well, after the fact, we saw it, and it is not very clear. We can pull it for you, that omnibus amendment you're talking
the
about?
omnibus amendment that was
Okay,
filed
well,
on November 18th.
That would be very interesting to put up because it does not detail specifically.
Oh,
It's just,
did you read all of the council agenda? I'm asking you a
which
question.
particular agenda?
The council agenda for November 21st. You're asking
So
me about
ex-
reading.
Could you explain to me why we're going through this exercise?
Yeah, yes, I'm going to explain because
Because
you
I
keep on
put, no, we
saying
put
you did not.
notice a year
Ma'am, you keep
ago
on talking over
about
me
this
again.
conversation.
You keep on talking over me again.
Okay.
All right? All right. We emailed in advance so we could tell you. You're claiming I didn't know what the omnibus amendment is. Two problems with that. Number one is, if you are not talking to the CAO and you are not having communications, then that's really a problem between y'all, even when we informed you of what's going on. Problem number two, we make a big deal, and my former staffer did an excellent job of preparing a budget memo that is attached as a communication and is published widely to everybody that explains in detail not only what the issue is that we're adding, but how much it is and what it is for. Did you read that?
Yes, I read it.
Okay.
So
Did you-
can I respond?
Well, hold on, I want to finish. Did you read that anytime between November 18th and November 21st?
If I did, yes.
Okay?
But what could I have
What-
done?
You could have
No,
objected.
no, 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 listen, if, I do acknowledge that there were meetings between Gilbert Montano and the budget chair, possibly you, and maybe council members that I was not included in. When I did find that those meetings overspent or had an over-reliance on fund balance, I raised the issue much earlier, but I also reached out directly to both you and Gilbert and the mayor to voice my concerns.
At the end of January.
This was, no, we started in June of
You
2024.
keep on saying that,
The omnibus, okay. It was,
the
the
evidence does
budget was
not-
passed.
you
We
keep-
just asked for reconsideration of how those funds were obligated because of the over-reliance on fund balance.
All right, but again, you keep on running from the facts. When the budget was presented, did you come down to chambers or send a communication to anybody saying that you, as CFO, objected?
Was it passed at that time? I'm asking.
Yeah, it was
It was
passed.
passed at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I
So
mean-
what objections could I have had?
Well, you could have
If it
come
was
down.
already passed?
No.
We started before
we
the
passed.
budget
No, I
process
mean, before-
started. We asked for this consideration prior to the budget exercise. So when that consideration wasn't done, the budget was passed.
No.
It was passed.
No, my question is before we pass the budget. In all the conversations that we had, which you were in the room for many of those, and your team was invited to, by the way, as well, between, let's just say November 18th, okay? We had the press conference either the Friday before or the Monday of, November 18th. You
Press
have
conference
the amendment for the
for the
school
budget,
board, for the
school
school
board,
board
okay.
settlement, okay? Between November 18th and November 21st, and we publish it early, primarily for the public, not for the administration, who we assume knows what's going on. What objection did you raise
To the school board settlement?
to anything that was in the omnibus amendment, period?
We started talking about this. Whether or not you receive it, because you did not agree, because you worked with Gilbert directly. And the fact of the matter is, when I was invited to the meeting, I did raise objections, but this was prior to budget. We're saying the same things over and over again. We have presentations that were made, we have financial advisors to come in, because we were talking about the bond issuance. We had this conversation. I don't understand why we keep going through it. The bottom line is, neither Gilbert nor you received the information that we put out there.
The
letter
information
on
you put out
January
in
27th
Okay.
laid out specifically what the risks were. I don't know if you've shared that with your colleagues.
Of course I have.
But you have?
Yeah, the
Okay,
January
good.
letter, yes.
Absolutely. It laid out the risks. Just like a budget amendment can come, the budget is the plan to spend. It's not as if the budget cannot be changed.
You keep on fighting the question. I'm asking a very simple question. Between November 18th, when the omnibus budget amendment was published, as well as the memo, and the time before we voted on the
When did
amendment
we
and the
receive?
budget,
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
it's public. It is a public document. I mean, you can't.
Sir,
you cannot-
listen,
you
if you
cannot
had,
say-
if you ignored
So
or
here-
dismissed
here is-
all of my
Here is, my
concerns
question,
up
you
to
keep on
the
talking
budget
over me again,
process.
Ms. Samuel. Between November 18th and 21st,
Mm-hmm.
before we passed it, what written objection or oral did you make objecting to the budget amendment and what the council passed?
I reiterated the same concerns from June
Where?
through
Where?
December.
Where?
With both presentations and communications directly to the CAO and the mayor, right, about the risk, especially to revenues, as it relates to expenditures and over-obligating.
So the answer to my question is you expressed none of that to the council.
I sent you a letter in January.
Between November, you keep on fighting the question.
Listen, I'll have to go through.
November
I don't
18th?
know. I cannot answer that right now. But you're
well-
talking about a specific window of time
Yeah, because
where
that's
you
what
are
we passed the
adding.
budget.
That's okay, but I'll find that out for you. But for this conversation, it started way before November. Is that true?
I do not, I will just say, I don't remember having a conversation.
So you don't remember on the revenue estimating
I
conference that the financial advisors came in?
I remember the advisors coming in. I remember also having a lot of discussions also that if we got fund balance to $133 million, that was a number that everybody could live with. And as long as we all collectively, again, stopped at $133 million,
Correct.
we would be in good shape.
Correct. And the fact that the over obligations would threaten that was a concern
No,
that we
no,
raised.
no. See, the 205 and the minus the 60 gets to 133.
Okay.
That's,
So you were starting, but
That's-
we also qualified that 205 is not all cash.
Well-
Do you agree?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, Mr. Wagasback, is the 205 all, can you answer that question? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
You're talking about the beginning fund balance?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a combination of cash, receivables.
That's fine.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct. So that was the concern. Thank you, Mr. Waxback.
Yeah.
That was the concern because the way it was being presented as if we were liquid with $200 million in cash, and that was
Okay.
not the case.
Okay, that's,
Okay.
okay. I will agree with that. I want to ask one more question. Does your letter of January talk about overtime protocols and what the administration was doing to put a
I
lid
can
on
read
those?
that for you if you like.
I'm happy to, but I'm just asking you the question.
I don't remember every line in the letter, but I can certainly read that if
Well,
you
yeah,
like.
well, I mean, I'm asking you, does it, because if
let
we're
me see.
talking about our concerns and the things that we're collaborating on and the things that the departments are doing that you are collaborating with them, and in the spirit of collaboration, I would think that collaboration would include the measures being taken by the administration to cap overtime.
And we are working to do that.
Well, but I think your letter would have expressed that, wouldn't it?
Well, listen, my letter expressed quite a bit that
Well,
was
is it in
pertinent.
there? Well, then it should be in there. I mean, when I write a letter to somebody.
I am not, listen,
But you.
the budget team
Is it
handles
in the letter?
budget. We pay
It's-
the
it's-
bills.
I'm asking you a question.
Wait a
Is it
minute,
in
but
the
you're
letter?
asking me to
Is
take
it
on
in
the
the letter? I keep on
responsibility.
asking
I
you, is
pay
it in
the
the letter?
bills. I pay the bills.
Is
So
it
we see
in
the
the
money
letter?
that comes in, and we see the money that goes out and how quickly both happen. So it is the budget office that does the budgeting.
Got it? What is, I just want to answer my question.
Did I include this in?
Yeah.
No, I included several other things in my letter.
Okay, but
But
the
they
overtime
were
itself.
equally
and what
as
was being
important.
done.
Listen, that is for the budget director to answer, but
Okay.
I have that and I can share that with your colleague.
I just think, again, I'm going to close with this, is that my viewpoint is we can't live in a world where CAO's office is here and CFO's office is here, and the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing. And that's.
Listen, I do not disagree with you. I brought it up to both you and to Gilbert at the time, that we should have been included in the conversations from the beginning, on the front end.
You were.
Right?
Oh,
You
my
were.
gosh. Look, I got to ask Joe, look, I appreciate it. I didn't finish my question, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to look at Joe and say, I trust Joe on this. Joe,
Yes,
was
I'm
the
listening.
CFO's office included in the discussions regarding the $20 million school board settlement?
Yes.
Yes or
No,
no?
that's not true.
That is,
That is
it is.
not
Now I'm
true.
I'm finding the email
We
right
found
now.
out about, Councilmember Green, we
At the press
found out
conference?
at the press conference.
Well, now
On the news, as a matter of fact, that morning,
That-
we found that out.
That kind of suggests a bit of dysfunction. Not on our end, because we sat down with at least the CAO who attended the press conference. One of the reasons
We
to
were not
invite him
told.
to the press conference was so that it would be clear to everybody that we was proposing $20 million to be spent as a settlement. You can object to the reasons for the settlement, but you can't object to the fact that it was correct, it was proper for us to assume that the CAO would be in contact with the CFO and the mayor. It was a bit challenging, and I think that's part of what the concerns are that I have relative to our discussion. It's a bit challenging to us that you suggest that we shouldn't have relied on that because you had had a discussion with the CAO. The CAO sat at the press conference and said, basically, this is a good deal.
I cannot answer for the
Well, no,
CAO,
you,
but
wait, you don't have to answer
Correct.
for him, Ms. Samuels. He was there.
I don't.
10 days later, we were told that we had a problem even writing the check. And I'll tell you, that was back in February, and I said then, how could we have a problem writing the check in February when we just approved a budget after months of hearings that was effective January the 1st? Basically, we were told it's okay, it'll be covered. We have this fund balance. We were told, very honestly, Councilman Thomas would ask often, why do we have to have such a high fund balance? Why can't we use it? And you can speak for yourself in terms of the words that you use.
About in a minute, yeah.
But we were told that everything was okay, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I just think that at the end of the day, I mean, we're moving forward, and this is a challenging time to move forward, but I think that it's fairer for us to rely on a chief administrative office, a budget office, to work with us and to take their suggestions as meaning something. I was surprised when right after a press conference, we were told the deal couldn't be worked, and we had had a press conference to make it clear that it was gonna work.
11/10, October 15th, in the year of our Lord, 2025. So what do we do now?
What do we do now is that there certainly has to be better communications going forward.
And we have that.
We have a new administration, of course, coming in. There's got to be more communications with the CAO
But better
and the
communication
CFO.
also relies on honest and candid communication. So I found the email, Ms. Samuel,
Okay.
November 6, 2024, so 15 days before we passed the budget, sent by Amy McCarron to Gilbert Montano, Romy Samuel, Jonathan Harris, Brandy DeLarge, Ashley Spears, Calvin Aguiard, myself, my chief of staff, Amanda Rizzo, and Courtney Story. Hi, as promised, here's a link to a shared spreadsheet so we're all working from the same document. This is to create the omnibus amendment memo. Then you go to the attachment, and on the third row, all council members supporting school board litigation contingency for payment, $10 million is the requested amount. You're on that email.
Okay, and then you were putting 10 million in when we did not have an agreement, right?
But no, ma'am. See, the fact that the CAO is on there and we're filing something and that is by request means the mayor has approved it. That is what the issue is. So there's 2 points that I'm making. Number one, you were fully informed before we passed the budget, even though you want to deny that. You
I
got
didn't, listen, I never said.
You did. You said
My
you were not
point
part of the
is,
conversation.
my point
You did.
is.
Your point
we've
is that you
asked-
want to rewrite
we
history.
We talked about this very early on, very early on. The exercise that we all had gone through, admittedly, there was a back and forth between the finance office and the CAO's office regarding the numbers. That's obvious. But to say that I would have agreed, I have raised the flag as often as possible.
I'm not saying that you agreed, ma'am. I agree. I'm not saying that you did. I want to be very clear about
Okay.
that. What I am saying is the mayor agreed as soon as we got that amendment and nobody
And we
objected.
raised-
And you were
correct.
informed. You may have told.
yes.
You may have,
Okay.
I'm not disputing that.
Okay.
I'm not going to dispute that one iota.
Okay,
But what I am saying is when we get a document that is prepared by the CEO's office, happens regularly, and it says by request, I'm allowed to rely on the fact that the mayor and the administration has approved that.
I agree.
Okay. Councilmember Harris.
Mr. Thread, if you could come up for a second, that'd be great. And Mr. Large, thank you. I'd like to turn back and take the temperature down a little bit based on the legislative auditor's recommendations. Joe, I assume that you read this report and have talked about the recommendations made.
Right. Yeah.
Are we all in agreement that we can move forward with these recommendations, particularly monthly budget to actual reporting?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're meeting, like I explained earlier, you know, I've got constant meetings with the finance director, and we're on track to move in through the rest of this year and into 26, balance that budget and get to a place soon after first quarter to start generating revenues with the council's support so we can crawl out of the situation we're in right now.
Can you provide, or Randy, can you provide these monthly to budget actual reporting to all the council members? And I do prefer this format that we're seeing that the legislative auditor has presented.
We can do that.
Okay, so the other recommendations were,
Oh, would that be in place of what we provide now?
you'll have to talk to the budget chair,
Okay.
but I would like to, this makes more
Ah,
sense
yes.
to me,
Got
to
it.
see the line items, to see the budget to actual. This is what like a P&L statement looks like that I've seen. Proposed budget should be adjusted to reflect an accurate beginning fund balance. That's something that we will work towards, right? We all agree to that. You're shaking your head, yes, Mr.
Yes.
Surratt. All right. And we should be cautious using prior year fund balance to finance ongoing operations. I think we've all learned a lesson from that. Revenue estimates should be realistic. That's something that we will do going forward as well.
Correct.
All right. And then finally, the numbers should be more realistic in annual budgets based on historic patterns and anticipated budget needs. You're doing that already, as you said, with the police overtime.
Right, and there might be some areas, Councilmember Jeruso, where we have to talk about the revenue estimating committee raising revenue when we have, you'll probably hear from EMS today, where they're generating revenues, offsetting some of the costs that's going to the other ambulance companies, Acadia, and where we have to bump the revenue a little bit to accommodate for that. But we've got a couple of instances like that.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Threat.
Wait, Joe, can you hold on? Because Councilmember Harris was asking good questions, and Councilmember Thomas raises too. So Mr. Wagsback has reported how far down we are, but that is for money that has been allocated, maybe not spent yet. So I'd like to also talk about, the school board settlement hasn't been paid, so that's $20 million that's still on the books. My understanding is we're moving the $10 million from charity and other projects over to fund balance. That's $22.5 million. So that gets me to what? $32.5 million. Do you have a sense yet of how many other savings you're going to be able to wring from the budget to see if we can make that number higher than $8 million? Or is it going to be all deficit spending?
We're working on that right now. I mean, I think in our queue, I've got a host of contracts awaiting approval, some multi-year contracts that I haven't approved yet, and we've got to look at that. I'm hoping to work with transition team to see what the next administration wants to move forward, but we kind of held up on a lot of the contract spends. We're looking at the budgets coming in, the end of the year spending for the departments. You'll hear a lot of those briefings tomorrow when they talk about the 30% cuts that we've got on their operating. So that's what we're looking at. Brandy, you got anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, I just think like, you know, with the numbers presented by Mr. Wagasback are now the fairest reaction that we have. I think part of the thing too, going back is we had time where, is it a $60 million deficit, is it a $100 million deficit? Now we're looking at $160 million as the number, and we appreciate the work. But I think at the same time, what are the areas internally that we've done? And I think to Councilmember Harris's point, Brandy and Joe, what can be shown on paper also that are the savings that we are going to incur? We're going to have, as you're saying, Mr. Threat, $10 million more in overtime, but then what are the other savings that we're trying to do as well to help pull the budget back into the green, into the black, instead of the red?
Yeah, and I think a lot of them are like the hiring freezes that we have, expenditure freezes, the cuts in budget, restrictions on overtime right now is what's current. We've got those other revenue generating opportunities that we push forward that'll start bringing revenue, and then we're putting a task force together right now to, like I say, support revenue and other areas where we can go out and audit and fine and get fees that way.
And a conversation we had earlier this year was about the reappropriation of the ARPA funds.
Yeah.
Right.
So we did hold our first task force meeting last week.
Oh, great.
So the ARPA supervisor is going back to relook at the formula that was used for revenue loss to confirm that we maxed out or if we did not max out on their evaluating indirect costs. Those two items would directly impact in a positive way the general fund for the city.
Great.
And then we have a handful of projects that have some general fund allocation to see if we can offset that. And those are places that were obligated by December 31st. So we're still within guidelines, so.
Right, and I mean, again, we were in GA, so I didn't want to raise it then, but we just added more money for the contract for homelessness. If there's ARPA funds that can be used instead
That's
of
one of the
general fund.
places that's been looked at,
Well, there you go.
yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have sobering news that we have to deal with, but I also want people to know, to Councilmember Thomas's point, that we're trying to find ways collaboratively to dig ourselves out of this hole. Mr. Wagsback.
Yeah, I wanted to point out, it's a question we haven't asked yet, but there was $11 million budgeted for state aid, Medicaid reimbursement. It doesn't show that we received a dollar yet this year, and in prior year, you received about 6.6 million. So that may be a question to explore, that somebody needs to explore and find out, and it could be a paperwork not issued or submitted to the state, I don't know. Or maybe we're not eligible for the reimbursement. That's something that we need to check that, because that's a big line item.
Here comes Ms. Richardson right now.
Yes, Mr. Wagasback, we started, EMS started with a new program, so we set up a new account string for that. So that object is in another place in 25. We have received the money. It's just, I'll show you the new object.
You know,
If
one
you
of,
all- if Ms. Richardson, just when you get a chance after the meeting, if you present to Mr. Wagsback and his team where it is so they can find it.
yeah, and like I say, Councilmember Girousse, on the ARPA piece, we've had our meetings about that, and once they prepared a letter, I want to go back with technical assistance to HUD to Treasury to make sure that they're okay with the way we move the monies around.
Yeah,
in
I
that
mean,
instance.
I think you all are doing it, let me be clear, that you are doing it in a smart way. You don't want to use the ARPA funds and have the feds come back and say, this is you misspent the money, so we have to
Right.
flag you for it and take the money back. We want to avoid that. But at the same time, it seems like we should explore all of our options, and I appreciate the
We are
fact.
Yeah.
going to involve the Treasury before we make the final decisions to ensure that we're not going to be out of compliance.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, but as a team, we're working collectively, budget, CEO, finance, every day, believe me.
Right, I do.
On trying to get this thing fixed.
I appreciate that.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank
Mr. Threat. Mr. Wagsback, I allowed that to get sidetracked. I apologize.
No, I mean, I think we presented in great detail. You know, we're here to help. And going forward with the transition and whatnot, we're here to help this team, you know, those in front of us and those behind us. If there's some preferred format, presenting these monthly, year-to-date actuals to you, we'll work with them on that. And we'll stay in touch. Maybe I can just get a parking spot in the garage somewhere. And I'll be available.
We need revenue. You willing to pay for that? All right. So, look, we appreciate very much you all being here. I also want to thank the city because I know this took a collaborative effort as well from the administration to make sure you and your team were afforded what you need. We apologize. I apologize primarily for how long it took today and for your time. But I think it's really important that everybody, now I think the biggest thing I've been saying is we haven't had a common set of facts. Now we have a common set of facts. How do we deal with those? So thank you very much. I think this also helps us, as Councilmember Harris was saying, about some better process and understanding. Thank you to you and your team. All right, next, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry, you had a card? Mr. Morgan, come on down. Come on down, Mr. Morgan. I apologize. Yeah, I am interested.
Good evening to everybody. Good morning to everybody in the house. My name is Larry Morgan. I represent south, east, and west of NOLA. I listen to the budget, and the people always ask me in the neighborhood and where I'm going, Morgan, I say what? Why is it that they cannot publicize a scenario of that budget in the paper, like the Sunday paper? They said that they would like to see it publicized instead of coming down here where their money, how much of their money is in City Hall now. That's what they want to know. And they want to know where their money is being spent. They want all that information publicized in the paper. It will be to the people's benefit, and it will be what their taxpayer, what their taxes is requesting you councilmen to execute for them. Please take it into consideration. We want to know in that newspaper how much money is in the city budget, how much money the city has spent. That's what the people request is. My other request is that I'm looking at the police department. The police department.
That's it. Just letting you know, it's EMS and fire. That's not NOPD.
Excuse me then. Okay, the fire department. Give them a raise because they're overworked and they're underpaid. Give them a raise. You give everybody else a raise. You gave the goddamn chief of police. How much you gave the goddamn chief of police a $340,000 raise? Give them a raise, you know what I mean? And don't have to take this bullshit. Give it to them the next round. Or even put it on the next vote down.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Mr. Chairman, before,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Councilmember Thomas. Well, Mr. Morgan, your time is over. What's our...
To see my man. But you tell her one thing, you can't duck me all the time. And you tell her I said she must have sold her soul to the devil to win that election. And all the
Okay, Mr. Morgan, come on. Mr. Morgan, Mr. Morgan has nothing to do with the budget. Mr. Morgan, thank you. Councilmember Thomas.
yeah, internal email within the police department, April 2024, 2:49 a.m. This is in the police department. There needs to be a reduction of the 56 weekly hour cap of overtime that is allowed to employees within the police department. To continue these weekly hours is putting a strain on the personnel costs of the budget. It does not appear that my allocated hours below are being utilized that I've sent to you in reference to the strain on January 24, 2024. Instead, they're utilizing last year's hours, which have surged this overtime cost with the allocation of the 56 hour per week per employee. April 21st, 2024, 2:49. From a Miss 2 Bradstreet to a Miss Williams, CC Shannon Williams, and Ann Kirkpatrick. And a whole lot more.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. All right, I know we were a little bit longer there with the legislative auditor, EMS, fire, and then the coroner. So, Dr. Marino and Mrs. Samaron, you all are invited to the table, please.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate everyone's support. We have some ideas on revenue generation. We are a revenue generating business within city government, and we consistently make more than we spend. And we have ideas on how we can make more money and further support public safety and other agencies within our city. So I'm going to go ahead and allow Chief Salmaran to present our presentation, and we really appreciate everyone's support.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I wanted to first start with, I know normally for our presentations we do, our service stats and things like that, and I know this year we had to consolidate a lot of stuff, but I did want to just go through the amount of calls that we have in the city. And so we're averaging about, we're still averaging about 71,000 calls a year. We do anticipate getting probably to 72,000 next year, right? And so we're trending up to where we're going to continue to increase the amount of calls that we respond to. That's about every 7.5 minutes we respond to a call for service, and so we are a very busy service. 60% of our calls result in a transport, so we do transport a lot. And what that says is that our units are tied up longer with a patient because we have to bring them to a hospital and then spend time with them there. And so that means we need even more people and more units to meet the needs of the community. Our response time compliance, we have always been straightforward on our response time compliance is not where it should be. We're normally in the 60, maybe 70 percentile range of getting to where we need to be when compared to the national response time compliance standards, which is to get to a location within 12 minutes 90% of the time, right? And so right now we're averaging about the 60 to 70 percentile. And we'll talk a little bit later on. We are working with the administration on bringing us, hopefully up a little bit to help with that response time. We are still utilizing the Acadian ambulance contract. They've been a real big help to get those minimum units on the street to meet those call needs. And then, we do also utilize, when we talk about how many units we need on the streets, in addition to response time compliance, I want to get everywhere quickly. That means we need more people, we need more trucks, we need to do that. We also measure what's called a unit hour utilization. On a 911 service, you need to be about maybe 30% of the time, which is a 0.3. Your unit should be tied up no more than 30% of the shift, basically, right? And we average, even with the Acadian contract, 60%, right? And so that's high. That means that your units are tied up 60% of the shift. And that doesn't allow for the units to be posted at various locations throughout the city and be close to those emergency calls when they come out. Just to go over our patient billing, I know Mr. Threat and other folks have spoke about our revenue and that we are actually projecting more revenue to come in. And also Doc said, we are a strong revenue center for the city. We do make money. And that money pays for the services that we provide. We have no millage. So everything that funds our department has to come through patient billing. And I believe that, and thank you very much for the ordinance rate increases earlier this year. That has brought in more revenue for us. And I'm also happy to say that, even with the increased ordinance rates, it allows us to bill the insurances and the payers more and not necessarily the patient, right? We're very compassionate when it comes to patient billing. I certainly don't want anyone to choose between an ambulance bill and a light bill or whatever it is. So we are very compassionate when it comes to that. But we are getting more money back from the payers, which is really what was the purpose of bringing up those rates, to make sure we can get all those allowable rates in there. So in 2025, so this year we anticipate ending the year out at 25 million. About 25 million is our projection. We project next year probably is going to be the same thing or above that. That completely funds our department at this point in time, right? And then working with the administration, we also, are hoping to get a pay increase for, at least paramedics and then also increase our staff numbers to help bring in, to more folks. That allows us to get to calls quicker, meet our calls, to get to our calls for service. And then also with more people and more calls, we can pull back on the Acadian contract, which is currently taking $8 million away from our revenue. And so as we pull from that contract, we're now able to pull those calls back and then bill for that, which is about 25% of our call volume. So our payer mix, in Louisiana, we are about a 40% Medicaid patient mix, followed by 40% of Medicare, 20% private insurance, and 10% self-pay. And then we have about a 1% VA rate. So, but most of our patients are Medicaid, which is 40%, which means that they don't even receive a bill. By law, we can't bill a Medicaid patient. And so we only bill Medicaid, and they give us, whatever their allowable rate is. So there was a question about UPL. So this year, the state allowed us to initiate a payment, and so I believe it was $7 million that we received back from the state this year. That's in addition to the 25, so we're at 32. So, bringing that money in from the state when they allow that to happen. That's not every year. They stopped the UPL payments. They sunsetted the program, but so last year in June is when they changed the Medicaid rates. They allowed us to back bill a year with those rates. And so that year worth of billing, we were able to go against a UPL for that, and that's where the $7 million came from. Special events remain a very strong part of our revenue as well. We bring in about $650,000 a year, $650,000 a year just on special events. And that's through our convention center contract, because we are the primary medical provider for the convention center, as well as all of our special events and details throughout the city. I will say also with the detail side, we give away a lot of details to private services because we just don't have the staff. So by ordinance, we have the first right of refusal, which means they have to call us first. If I don't have the staff for that, we say, look, I can't do that. Here's Acadian, AMED, East Jeff, West Jeff, whoever it is, you can go to them and get that. So again, when we increase our staffing, we increase our department to be where we need to be at, we can also, take back some of those details that we lost throughout the years, so, which will bring in more revenue. Any questions on the revenue before I get going on the rest of it? Or
Wait, Councilmember Harris has a question.
Yeah.
Councilmember Thomas after that.
Thank you. You keep talking about staffing up, which I agree with, that we should staff ourselves so that we can let go of some of these contracts. But how are we doing that in the face of a hiring freeze?
So we have been working with the administration on, getting stuff pushed through. We have not had any pushback. Look, if I tell them I need X amount of EMTs, X amount of paramedics, they do it, right? The hiring freeze forms go through, the requisitions go through, because, we are a public safety service. And also they're revenue generating positions if you look at them that way as well.
Are you losing any people to other parishes at this point?
We're always losing people. I think our pay is right below where we need to be. And so we're still losing folks, especially to hospitals. You can go make probably the same or a little bit more to go work for somewhere else that's lower call volume, lower stress, safer, you're home on time, all that stuff. And so that's why, part of our proposal or part of our plan, hopefully with the CAO's office, is to increase those wages to try to keep that staff from leaving, but then also to recruit that staff, because the recruitment's slow too, because people are not coming to work here for $27 an hour.
Right.
They're just not. And so that's part of the plan. We have to bring that up so we can recruit Like if you give me 50 positions, there's no way I can recruit 10 people at $27 an hour, right? I need to raise that salary even to recruit people in, so.
What do you need to raise it to?
Ideally, 3250 is where we need to be. That's in an ideal world, but right now, we're proposing that we bring up to 29 and some change. And so that will allow them after the first year to bump over the 30
Okay.
when they make their year.
All right, well, thank you for that information. I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
you are a revenue generating part of our city, and so we should be using you rather than outsourcing. I think that's absolutely correct. And I also just wanted to say thank you for all that you and
Thank
your
you.
team do for our
Thank
city.
you. And I don't want to focus on the revenue. You know, we have to get to places and save lives. That's what we do, right? And so, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I want to be sure I can get places that we need to get. And, you know, if somebody can't pay their bill, I'm not really, I just want you to be okay and healthy, right? And that's our goal, right? The revenue really is to fund the department and to fund the services. And so, but at the end of the day, we're still a public service. We're still a public safety agency, and that's our primary mission, is to get out there and serve the public, so.
Thank you. Councilmember
right.
Thomas.
Thank you. I also want to say this is an essential service that a city can't live without. So whatever the budget challenges are, this is about life and death, and the men and women in you guys' department and the leadership that you guys have done your job over and above the call to do it. I wanted to kind of follow the lines of what Councilmember Harris was saying. And there's always precedent that even in a budget crisis or in a freeze, departments that generate revenue, you can readjust and add and build to go out there and collect that revenue. You guys have been under budget, but overproduced, and have even identified $8 million plus more that you could get with a few adjustments within your department. Where are you now within those discussions, especially given a looming budget deficit? And what do we need to do to make that reality happen so that you guys can help us go out and collect those funds that are just dangling out there?
We don't have a lot of funds just dangling out there. I think, so we have a pretty great, we have a good billing vendor. They do get good returns back on billing. We also have an aged collections company, which, you know, at some point after you've received so many statements, you go to the collections company, right? And they follow up with you a couple of times. We also go back for insurance. We do payment arrangements, you know, so, but we have a lot of unknown, I mean, urban EMS as well, we do see a lot of unknown patients, people we don't have identification on, you know, so that way, you know, we now have to go back to hospitals and get information with transport. And so, you know, I would say that we are doing a good job on we do have some money out there that we're still working on. We do work it from a billing side to try to recoup that as much as possible. As far as the budget side, you know, of collecting more than we spend, I guess that's a Brandy question of, you know, of kind of where it goes and what it's spent on. So, but I know I will tell you that our revenue is at a point where we can very easily support our current budget and then a modest increase in salary and also more people.
I think that's the point. Thank you.
Yes.
I understood the question in a slightly different way. I think that I thought that the question you were asking is how close are we to recouping that $8 million from Acadian?
Correct.
Did I understand?
And what does it take currently to do that?
Okay, so we need to have an additional 10 trucks a day. That's how many trucks we are getting from Acadian every day. And so that represents about 25% of our call volume and therefore 25% of our billing. So we've been working very closely with Mr. Threat and Brandy and Romy, and we believe that we are really close to moving forward with those hiring additional staff and with the pay raise. Thank you.
Thank you.
10 trucks a day will bring us off of Acadian completely.
Gotcha.
That's $8 million back on the revenue side. Okay. All right.
All right.
So our 2026 goals are pretty consistent with our 25 goals. You know, we're going to continue to navigate the financial challenges in the budget and work with work with the administration on what we need to do to do our part. We definitely, and we've already talked about this, we have to secure better compensation for our staff to keep our talent and to recruit new talent. You know, you need to, when you come to work for us, you shouldn't have to be at a poverty level. You shouldn't have to work 3 jobs. You know, you need to be paid properly. And also, we're expecting you to do stuff that doctors do. I mean, like, they're doing some pretty advanced stuff out there, right? And so I can't pay you like a Starbucks manager. I just can't. So, you know, that's important. Hiring more staff to lower the dependency on the Acadian contract and other mutual aid services. And so that's 10 more trucks a day would get us off of the Acadian contract, but also we do need some more units to support that. We're very innovative when it comes to our protocols. We continue to do that. Doc has been very, very progressive. She's allowed under her medical license to do a lot of advanced stuff that many cities don't do. We do blood, we do advanced stuff in the field. And so, you know, thank you to Dr. Marino for that. You know, she trusts us to do that. She trusts the staff who are very, very professional pre-hospital providers to do that service. And so, you know, we do very much appreciate that. Next year, we're going to continue our EMT Recruit Academy, which is great. We're doing great things with our academy. We've trained 19 recruits so far this year. And so as we budget for more positions, we're going to obviously put more, you know, recruit positions within that amount. All right, personnel-wise, we are at 64% staffing. We have 18.75 vacancies right now. So with the 50 positions that we're asking for in the proposal, that includes the 18 that are currently vacant now. So that'll bring us to 200 folks on staff to bring us where we need to be.
But long-term, in order to get to that 0.3 unit hour utilization, we will need to be closer to 250 in order to have the response times that I believe our citizens deserve.
And every year as we continue, we'll certainly come back and say, you know, we'll look at the revenue, we'll look to see where we are with staffing, and, you know, it'll be a phased approach over the next couple of years. So we look forward to working with the administration moving forward to do that. All right, our budget. This year we're at 17.1, and then in 2026 it'll be 18.7, and then we're decreasing on the operating side of 1.6, and so that was the 30%, Brandy. That was the 30%, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And so, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as far as how that would affect us. Overtime-wise, so this year we're at about $3 million last year for overtime. We're about $3 million this year. We're at about $2 million prior to that, right? And so and if you look at our trends, our overtime is Mardi Gras, August, and then year end, right? So, you know, they normally trend around the same times, which is consistent around special events. If we have a storm come through, I will say in 2024, we are, because of staffing issues, we're actually doing more what's all staff activations and actually bringing everybody in to work a special event. That has increased overtime significantly. As we up our staffing, we can start to ease back on those full-time activations and do it voluntary, and so you'll get less spending there on that. So I just wanted to address the overtime issue, you know, certainly because it was brought up before. Any questions on the 26 budget?
I don't see any.
This, on non-general fund, this includes, so as far as non-general or one-time funds, we have two things through the health department. First is through the Sickles Family Foundation, that funds our blood program. It's $100,000. And then the opioid abatement funds, which is another $100,000, which funds Narcan and Suboxone, which is a treatment for people who are going through opioid withdrawals that we are able to administer, which again is an advanced protocol that Doc has agreed to allow us to do. I believe, and so Brandy maybe can address this, there was some other stuff that was carried over from last year to this year. So,
Yeah, so
yeah.
you have the DOJ grant that's still in your budget, but then there's also the ARPA reallocations have not been done, so we haven't touched any ARPA pieces until the reallocation is done. So the ARPA of a little bit over $1 million is included in that total, which will be adjusted.
Okay, so it'll be adjusted in the non-general fund?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the DOJ grant I have in 2 slides to go over that. So as far as budget impact, the question was that with the 30% cut and, trying to manage the budget a little better, how is that going to affect us? I think it'll depend on how much money we're going to be cut, right? And so the Acadian contract it hasn't cost us anything in a while, right? So they account for revenue and credit the bill before it comes to us. And so, but that's lost revenue. So it may not come out of the expense side, it definitely comes out of the revenue side. So if we have, other cuts, it'll be more on the supply and contract side. And the only thing will be medical supplies. And so, but with more calls, more staff, it's going to mean more supplies. And also, we've had about a 10 to 15% increase in supply with inflation. And so, we have to accommodate for that. And so I do feel that if we got into a situation, mid-year or later in the year, if we had a problem, then we could go to the administration and they can help us with that. So I feel comfortable with that process.
So I guess the take-home message from that is we may be coming to council again for a mid-year adjustment to make sure that we have everything that we need to care for the citizens of New Orleans.
For the staffing side, the longer we wait for pay increases and more staff is going to delay the better response times and more revenue. All right, one-time funds. The big one-time fund that we have that we're working right now is the opioid treatment grant. That's the COSUP grant that we were awarded $1.3 million in 2022. And that is the partnership with Odyssey House Louisiana to follow up with patients who have experienced overdoses and try to get them into services or treatment or anything else that they might need after they experience that. We have $781,000 remaining, and that needs to be spent by the end of September of next year. And so far in that program, we've served, or Odyssey has served, 261 calls for service. And that is it, unless you have any questions.
I don't see any. I just want to ask, because Mr. Morgan had a card last time to make sure. All right. Fire's up next. Thank you very much.
In closing, I really appreciate the council through this process. Councilmember Druso, I appreciate your work on the budget council, or budget committee. I know it's not easy, and thank you for doing that. And thank you to all the other members for your work, and we look forward to working with you moving forward.
Thank you. It's a team effort.
Thank you so much for your help and support. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is NOFD. Not to be confused with NOPD.
What do you have to say? They closed the
We'll let y'all get settled in. Thanks, Chief, and your team for being here.
We're ready when you are.
Yes, floor is yours. Thank you all for being here.
Well, good morning, council members.
Good morning.
Good morning to the community that's here and the public that's watching. Start with introductions. I'm Superintendent of Fire Roman Nelson. To my far left, I have Deputy Superintendent of Administration Albert Thomas. To my very near left, I have Tamikia Dunkley Edmond, our Fire Administrator. To my right, Deputy Superintendent Armand Bordes, who is over operations. And to his right, Deputy Superintendent Robert Isolo, who is over planning. And with that, we'll get right into it. I think we're starting with department goals. Again, this is an expedited presentation, so we'll just get right into it. Starting off with our 2026 department goals, developing a strategic plan to manage the effects of the hiring freeze, accompanied by personnel and operating budget reductions. So I know we've heard a lot of different talk about, is there a hiring freeze, is there not a hiring freeze for public safety? We're operating under the assumption that there is a hiring freeze based on the budget numbers that we've been allocated. So we're targeting to make sure that we stay within that bounds until we receive an additional funding allocation if that happens in the future. Creating operational efficiency by transitioning all divisional leadership into the new City Park Fire Headquarters.
I don't want to mark.
As you all know, this has been a long time coming. This is something that we hoped to be in there 2 years ago, but we're very, very close right now. We hope to be in there before the end of the year, which will really give us the operational efficiency of the first time in the history of the New Orleans Fire Department actually having all of our staff in one place. So that'll be very beneficial for us as well as the public as they come to do business with the fire department. Finally, we want to focus on preparing for, we're scheduled for a 2027 PIAL, or Property Insurance Association of Louisiana rating. As you know, we currently have a Class 1 rating, which is the best rating possible that gives our citizens the best, and our homeowners, the best fire insurance ratings properly. So we want to work to make sure we maintain that fire rating as it comes up in 2027. Getting into our 2025 budget summary and 2026 proposed budget. As you can see here, this personnel FTE summary basically shows a reduction of 29.5 FTEs in 2026. And so we're going to achieve that through the hiring freeze and through attrition, which our attrition rates average about 35 to 40 annually across the entire department, including administration and operations. Our general fund budget summary and 2026 budget request. As you can see here, personal services wise, this encompasses budgeting for actuals, unclassified pay reduction, hiring freeze savings for classified positions, and $3.5 million in overtime. So to discuss overtime, the New Orleans Fire Department in 2025 has been operating under the assumption that we were going to be given $6 million in overtime. We are under $6 million in overtime right now, and that has included services we provided for New Orleans EMS. Excuse me 1 second, I'm sorry, we got a couple of, oh, this is what we spent here. Okay. So I think last year we spent about $1.8 million in EMS support. That included sprint cars and firefighters working on ambulances. So far this year we spent about $1.6 million in overtime supporting EMS. We also spend much smaller amounts of overtime supporting EMD in the apparatus repairs with some of our fire EVTs who are trained and certified to service fire apparatus, property management to maintain the stations and to keep the facilities in good livable conditions for our firefighters. So with this $3.5 million reduction going into next year for overtime, there will be some significant cuts in staffing across the board. But with that number, I think that we can maintain all apparatus and service on a daily basis and meet any other challenges that arise over the next year.
Chief, I'm sorry, can you
yeah.
repeat the amount of overtime for this year? What was the total?
The total overtime number right now that the New Orleans Fire Department has spent to date is $6.7 million.
Okay.
But that includes airport overtime that is reimbursed through the airport. And that also includes the $1.4 million for EMS support and the other supports that the fire department provides.
And did you receive a notice from the CAO to curtail overtime?
We had a conversation with CEO Montano in April of this year, as well as budget, and we were told to proceed as normal with the overtime. I specifically asked the question at that time on whether we needed to dial it back. I would much rather feather the brakes early to make sure that we coast in versus having to jam on the brakes like we have to do now. So we were not told to curtail our overtime until the email that went out from CEO Montano telling all departments to cut by 30%.
So when did you finally receive notice to curtail?
I'm not sure.
About a month and a half ago.
A month ago? Can you put your mic down, just so I can hear you? Sorry.
Yes, so we received the notification of overtime spending about a month and a half ago. And then we had a intimate meeting with Budget and CEO Threat that redefined the spending should stop. It should cease immediately and start a strategic plan on how to continue personnel operations for the remainder of the year.
I got it. I got it.
CEO Montano put out an email prior to that, but in our subsequent meetings following that, because we brought up the point about the offsets to overtime for working with DMS and the other agencies, and we were told they were going to look into it. And it was not until CEO Threat came in and analyzed the situation and put the across-the-board blanket that we actually started trialing it down.
I got it. I got it. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Moving on to the non-general fund, I think I'll refer to Brandon on this one, but I think this just shows some legacy FEMA grant funding that have not yet cleared the system.
Part of it is the $4 million is the on behalf of payments for the firefighter millage pay. The additional, within the last 24 hours and talking to Tamiki, it appears there was a ADP error when the data came down to transfer from ADP over to the budget portal. These positions should actually be in general fund, but they're still being, some of them are still being coded at the time the pull was done to the grant. And we corrected that last budget season, so we have to correct it again.
All right, and next, the effects of the legacy costs, pension, and workers' compensation. I affectionately call this the Burnside report, but I see Mr. Burnside is not here today.
Yeah.
But he often points out that we don't go into where the money is really going. He also often points out that our firefighters are ridiculously expensive. And I sat down with him and explained to him that most firefighters are very, very expensive, right? Let's be straightforward. But a lot of it is the legacy costs of workers' compensation costs and the pension costs, right? That we're all aware of. We know need to be addressed in the future. And this just kind of goes into that. So I'll just kind of go through that. And then we compare 2025 to 2026. As you see, we've hired over the last year, we've added additional firefighters, but the numbers still basically stayed the same because those workers' compensation costs are basically just divided amongst more firefighters, but it's still a legacy issue that we're going to have to address in the future. And I think that's, I'm sorry, one-time funds. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Budget impact.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Councilmember Green.
One thing that, since we put his name on the report, one thing Mr. Burnside does say is that we have to do something about it, and you said something just now about we have to do something about it. what do you think is down the pike in terms of being able to address the issue?
I think on the pension side, I see Secretary of Treasury Meeker is here. I think the New Orleans Firefighters Pension Board has some solutions. Of course, it's going to be additional funding increases, right? They've come up with a plan through the actuaries where the city can do a more balanced, predictable annual actuarial calculated contribution to the fund that will get the fund up to 80% funded, I think, in relatively short order when you think about the life of the pension fund. There's also some additional options if we look at the possibility of utilizing the longevity funds that are coming off the books soon and potentially re-upping that to shore up the fund. So I think there's some different options out there, but I think we have several different ways we can go about it from the pension fund side to close that gap.
How are you working on pursuing those options or studying them? Who's working with you? Is it the CAO's office or internally? Are you looking at it or just what?
Between the pension fund, the CEO's office, and our team, we're all working together on reviewing those numbers and looking at it. I think that will be definitely a discussion that we'll be having with the next administration on how they want to approach closing that gap.
Do you anticipate making some sort of report or trying to make a report by a certain date?
Yeah, I think the team had been having some discussions with the CEO's office and everything, but I think with the transition, I think that'll be something that we'll be talking about very early next year with some different proposals that we can look at as a city.
Okay.
On the workers' compensation side, I think that's a little more challenging. Again, as I've said before, one of the first conversations I had when I became chief was with Eldridge Morris, our risk management director, on how we could lower the costs. And his response was that there's not much we can do. It's legacy cancer costs for these firefighters that have been exposed to these carcinogens over their entire career. You know, when I came on the job, not every firefighter wore an air mask. We still were breathing in a lot of these contaminants. We had incidents in the past like the tech called butadiene incident that exposed firefighters to a lot of cancer-causing chemicals. And so we're just seeing that more and more. Our approach and what we can do and what we've been trying to do is to minimize that exposure risk to our firefighters. And we talked about that in the past with the decontamination after every fire. We'd love to be able to get a second set of bunker gear for every firefighter. The cost on that is extremely prohibitive, but we have assembled a small cache of loaner equipment so that up to a 2-alarm fire, we can replace everyone's gear so they can be washed and they can have it back by the next shift they work. So incremental steps and whatever we can do to keep our firefighters safe and to minimize the exposure to those carcinogens and hopefully reduce those legacy costs going forward for the future for the city.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman.
I just want to add, my teammate just sent me a message to notify me for NOPD and for fire, the first communication we have for overtime was June the 23rd.
Thank you.
Okay, budget impact, the following challenges.
Which raises more questions.
I mean,
I'm sorry that you brought that up because I thought we were finished with that. So the issue was raised in June and no action was taken. That's our issue here when we get blamed as a council for these spending issues. I just want to emphasize, Brandy, what you just said is, I think, at the core of some of the discussions that we're having. That's all. Joe?
No, I mean, look, I agree with Romy that we should be collaborating on these things. I think where there's an inherent struggle is we're not the executive branch. We don't know what's going on, and I appreciate what Chief Nelson said today, is they need to be in a position to know too, and we don't want to starve you as well. I mean, you can't be starved to do your jobs. We all know that. So how do we find that right balance between making sure the men and women in NOFD, EMS, NOPD can work, and how do we all work together to make that happen for the best interest of the citizens in New Orleans? I think that's where we are.
Councilman, we've been a very generous council in the past. There hasn't been a whole lot that we said no to, whether it be funding the Trauma Recovery Center, whether it be, providing the full amount of funding for NORD, whether it be adjusting to certain things that were brought to us by the administration. But I just want to clear the air on maybe one of the biggest issues that we had. As a council, we trusted a lot. And I think that we should not be penalized for allowing the administration to move forward, especially if our city is moving forward as it is. So at the end of the day, though, there were costs to some of these things that we kind of maybe approved and didn't get deeply into enough. But I think that knowing that those kind of memos existed since June and no action was taken is still problematic. That's all. But thank you again for what you're doing.
So I touched on some of these earlier, but the hiring freeze, again, combined with the reduction in overtime for 2026 will result in reduced daily staffing in fire operations. As we mentioned earlier, since CEO Threat has come on board and we kind of got a better feel of the exact situation, we've already dialed back our overtime significantly. We have lowered our overtime to reduce staffing number in operations just to maintain that staffing number. And basically outside of that, we're still using a little bit of overtime to maintain our apparatus, working with EMD, and then backfill overtime is basically only for mandatory required certifications and training required to keep our members compliant, right? So that we don't run company short when members have to train to get the certifications that they need. Again, as I mentioned earlier, throughout the budget reduction, we're going to be working on maintaining our PIL Class 1 rating. We're still seeking funding for the state-mandated cancer screening. That is going to be something foremost that we're going to have to discuss next year. We've been working with benefits on some of the different options that are out there to provide that service. But that is another unfunded state mandate that we have to look at obtaining funding for to start working on next year. I talked about the fleet maintenance, fleet replacement plan. A bit of good news. EMD has just released 6 new pumpers to the NOFD. Captain Howley is here, who kind of works with our logistics team in managing our heavy fleet. And it'll take a couple of weeks as they get them completely outfitted and everything squared away on them, but they will be rolling out and hitting in the streets within the next few weeks, so that is very good news for our apparatus fleet. I talked about facility maintenance and some of the preventive and emergency repairs that our team has been doing, working with property management. Again, a lot of that is going to be reduced, if not eliminated, next year. We're really going to work on maintaining all of our contractual obligations with the reduction to our other operating funds, and then also the costs associated with the new headquarters transition that we hope to have completed before the end of this year, as I mentioned earlier. One-time funds, the ARPA funds, again, these are still carryovers, but we've completed the fire station alerting system is actually online right now. They're doing the final testing. We anticipate that we will completely switch over to the automated, not completely automated, but we have this new system has automated voice dispatching, where a dispatcher doesn't have to read out the entire road. It actually does an automated AI voice that translates everything. All of the tests has gone good. Everything seems to be working. They're doing the final round of testing right now, and that should be online within the next week or so. And the rescue equipment was completed last year. That was equipping every one of our ladder trucks with battery-operated extrication tools so they could do more rapid vehicle extrications during auto accidents. And as I mentioned, all of the funding has been expended on those 2 projects. And that's all we have, barring any questions.
Great. Thank you, Chief. I don't see anybody with any questions. We appreciate all the work of the men and women who are here. See more of them in the audience. I don't have any comment cards on this. I'm just scanning because I don't want someone like Mr. Morgan upset unnecessarily. So not seeing any comment cards and otherwise, we thank you very much for your presentation, your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, next up is the coroner.
Hey, how are you?
All right, why don't we go ahead and get started?
I want to thank the council for having me today. I'm making my annual pilgrimage to tell you where we are. Our budget last year was about 4.5 million. We clearly understand the stress the city budget is under. Our request for another 566,000 was for 2 death investigators, 2 transport drivers, 2 office personnel, 1 administrative specialist, and 1 autopsy assistant. Obviously, we're probably not going to get all of that, but we're asking for it because we need it to reduce overtime. At least, at very least, I don't know how we could possibly operate the coroner's office with $1 million reduction from 4.5 to 3.5 million. I think there was some celebration about the reduction in homicides, but of course there's been an uptick recently, and it probably is going to match last year's. Drug deaths are initially down, but again, they're trending upward again. So we certainly, at the very least, would like 1 investigator and 2 drivers to reduce overtime, and hopefully keep us as close to our last year's budget as possible, which was at about $4.5 million. There's one other pet peeve. Yesterday, we had a body on the street in New Orleans East. We had another one on the levee in Algiers. We had 1 investigator trying to get to both of them in an unmarked car. Almost impossible. I've asked you time and time again to put markings on these cars. Police has them, sheriffs have them, Xavier Security has them, Dillard Security has them, all of the colleges have them. We're the only investigative body who is expected to get from crime scene to crime scene in unmarked cars. You're asking us to do the impossible in a timely, efficient, and safe manner. I'm asking you to be cognizant of that again, yesterday another. We've got to go from New Orleans East, 1 investigator, body on the street, to another one on the street in Algiers in an unmarked car. That is not safe, and that does not allow us to do prompt response time. And I think I've been here 4 or 5 times asking for this, so I'm going to ask for it again. I know you all in the...
I have a question then.
I know you all in a budget.
You mean little paint markings on a car, or do you mean?
No, like a blue light or something.
Blue light, okay, a light is, okay, I got it.
A blue light. I don't, some kind of marking that they can turn on to get through traffic. You're trying to go over the I-10, we can't get through.
I know, so then
So
when
bodies are laying on the street much longer than they have to because we can't get to the scenes.
is that a regulation? You've asked us, and you said if you
I've asked you 5 or 6 times.
I know, but is that a regulation? Is something we have to pass to do that?
Well,
I mean, you're asking the council,
we don't
is
have
it a
any
money thing?
Councilman Green, I have to ask you all to do everything. The coroner's office only generates self-funded about $25,000 a year. That's all we got. We have right now, we have our finance person, our human relations person, and our death person who does the computer work and work with me, all haven't been paid in 2 months. I can't get it done unless you give it to me. I don't have any money. I don't get a portion of the millage. I don't have anything. So I'm just asking you, telling you what we need.
Well, no, I got you, but well, first off, I'm gonna be honest with you, since this is a budget hearing, how much is it to budget to have a blue light on a car? I mean, we are not at that point where I think that if that was something necessary, that you couldn't get something like that, but you're saying you're asking us, but is it a line item that we've refused in the past in your budget? No, that's a yes or no. I mean, you're asking us, I mean, how much is it?
Excuse me, sir,
How
but
much
I've
is it?
asked you, I don't know how much it costs. How would I know?
I don't know either.
I think that's an unfair question to ask me how much it costs to put a blue light on a car.
Suppose I wanted to amend your budget, for example.
Well, then you would
with a
ask
motion.
how much it costs to put one on a police car or you must have it in your budget. I don't know.
I think I would like to know. Maybe I can help.
But that's easy for you. It's easier for you to
No,
find
it's not.
out,
It's
Councilman.
not. When you say easier for me to find out, you're making a presentation to us right now, and you're saying that it doesn't exist. I'm willing to help.
All right, so we'll help.
Police cars come with the amount,
I don't know the amount. I don't know how much it puts.
okay, I mean, I think that it's fair for me to say what's the amount. At the end of the day, yes, we have 35 budget presentations, for example, and a lot going on. I'm willing to help, but I mean, that's up to the council to decide if they wanted to do it. But okay, but that's all right. But you don't propose that in your budget in terms of a line item that you would want to have it approved. This is budget proposals.
Look,
Okay.
I'm not here to be argumentative with
I'm
you.
not arguing at all.
not, sir.
I'm not arguing. I'm just asking.
Councilmember Thomas, are you done, Councilmember Green?
I don't think I have the answer. I just would like to know. Okay, go ahead.
If you'd like to know, it's easy for you to find out.
It's Councilman
already do
Council,
it for
come
other
on,
cars.
Coroner.
Free
I
for
mean,
all.
Police cars.
You're here to make a budget request,
Yes, and I'm making it, but I don't, you're asking.
but you don't know the amount. I know. That's part of the budget request. I see line items. If you ask me what the line item is amount for a certain thing, I have it right here in your budget. I'm just saying, I don't see why year after year it hasn't been done, but is it because the money hasn't been allocated? There's also some law, I think, but I mean,
There's a state law that prohibits
Okay.
flashing lights other than on emergency vehicles. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay.
So there's a state issue
So maybe that's
that we
the
have to resolve with the state, not for city
Exactly.
council.
That's correct.
Okay.
But that, we have emergency lights on every vehicle as Dillard, Xavier, UNO. So there's a class that Councilman Morrell said that our drivers would have to take in order to qualify to get those.
Councilman,
Class has never been set up. So
I did also send an email just now to EMD just to inquire. They're thinking that there could be lights, but not the police package. And so I've asked them to get us a pricing for those
Perfect.
to assist in answering these questions.
We're solving problems in real time. Councilmember Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a new issue, and I can highlight a situation that happened during the freeze when the coroner's office had difficulty. There was a body in one of the senior residences that was there for days, and it was a challenge whether the driver would be able to get there, to get in that apartment, to even identify, to have it removed. So the coroner's made this request. It's not within his power in terms of policy or charter to grant it. It has to be done at other levels, and you would think that someone in the administration would take the lead or legislatively at the state level to do it, because there are other security vehicles that have some form of marking, some form of light, even if it's not the police package. They have the white or the yellow lights or red lights to accompany them. So that's not within his power to do that. That's within the power of the legislative
I don't have
branch.
it. There
Thank
is
you.
a state
Thank
law,
you.
but there's something, I mean, all the universities have them. We're the only investigative body that doesn't have them, and yet we have to be at every crime scene, everyone, wherever the police are, wherever the emergency services are. The bodies can't move till we get there. They can't move, and we don't have the way to get there. We go going through traffic in unmarked cars. But in any case, I just have to say it, it's a pet peeve of mine, and I understand you all have a budget crunch. I'm not oblivious to that effect. So you know what we need. We'd like to have another 500,000, but at least try not to cut us too much so that we can operate our office.
Great.
The
Mr.
amount-
Large,
The amount is about $15,000 per vehicle.
to install flashing lights? Okay. Well, now we have a number that we can consider, but we also,
By 6 vehicles, I think you said about 6
Yeah,
vehicles?
about 6 vehicles.
6 vehicles.
Yeah, for the investigators.
okay. Can you amend their budget request to add that?
You can add that in, we have to find a place to take it out, the budget?
No.
Oh,
Just
the request,
add
okay.
The request, note that
Oh,
the
no,
request
I already
has
have it
been made.
noted. Yep, I
Yes,
have it noted.
okay.
And I'll just send it an email to Liz to distribute today as well, so everybody has
what we
visibility.
Wonderful.
$90,000. Okay.
Duh.
Anything else?
That's not on the council.
All right, thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much.
Let it be written, so let it be written.
I do have,
Youth runner.
wait, don't go anywhere. Angela Kinlaw.
For the coroner?
Thank you all. This will just be really quick. 2 things. I wanted to acknowledge the data point on page 8 of the presentation with the stat homicides. And I just wanted to reference that page with the ultimate naming of a desire to just kind of double down on the perspective of the need to push back on any invitation for the National Guard to come into the state of Louisiana, but particularly we're right here in Orleans Parish. So I want to name that, and I think that this is a wonderful data point to help support that request. The second thing is I wanted to name that we all remember when unfortunately the coroner's office was temporarily closed because the HVAC wasn't working. And I just wanted to use the budget season as an opportunity to reinforce something that council people have actually brought up in the past, but I think it's time to implement it into the budget, which is an HVAC fleet, that we're actually hiring people who can care about and be dedicated to checking with a regular work management schedule around the city of New Orleans buildings and facilities. And Council Member Harris, you know that we have had abundant back and forth because of the library in Central City. And we're really grateful that the doors are open now, but we want to keep them open. And that's an example of a city building, which if we had someone who was focused on a regular work management schedule, that would do well for all of us. We shouldn't see the coroner's office being closed down because of that, and we also shouldn't see any of our other public services closed down because of that. So just want to put an extra push on that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harris, I do want to say one other
Yes,
thing.
Councilmember Green.
I want to also end it on a favorable note. We talked about this before, Mr. Coroner, and the numbers are down in overdose deaths. And I think that part of the reason is, of course, the City Council has provided support in certain areas, whether, in terms of, but you've also been out there and you've talked about the dangers in homeless encampments. You talked about the dangers of how people, conduct certain parts of lives that could help us to reduce the number of deaths. And when I look at the amazing number, because I first thought that it was a typo when somebody told me 532 overdose deaths and 400 the previous year, but then 167, which is still terrible. But at the end of the day, those are real lives. Those are people who have been saved, and part of the reason that they've been saved is because your talk and also the council's actions in certain areas have made a difference. So I do want to applaud you for
I'll make
continually
myself
talking about it.
available for anyone
Yes.
who wants to talk about drug addiction, the dangers of drug use. Continue to make myself available to anyone who wants to listen and who wants the statistics.
Right,
We
and-
still have 2.5 months left to go.
But we're still gonna be down again.
Yeah, but it
from
appears we
previous
will
years.
be down. I don't know how much. That's
Right.
hard to project. But we seem to be making some progress. But we certainly want to take a step back. So that's why we're trying to keep our budget as much as we can, as much as you all can afford. That's all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for appearing before
All right,
us.
thank you.
Anything else?
No.
That's it. Councilmember Green moves to adjourn. I second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.